One of the great fears there was from anybody up there to put friendly fire on somebody.
Did that ever happen?
Oh, it happened quite a lot, yeah. And in about 10 minutes, these bloody super sabres these Yanks had, what, come screeching in a treetop level, and bloody napalm and bombs going everywhere there. Roar, shit, this is war here, man. And anyway, at 5 o'clock in the morning, it was just like this huge roll of thunder. This B-52 strike went in, it's just awesome, the power of it. Yeah. You know, you've only got to be out 6 inches, you can hit a bloody mine or something like that. There's a difference between the luck of the draw and no luck at all. We used to fire the high-powered anti-tank round into a bunker system. They didn't explode, but they had such a huge muzzle velocity that just the compression would blow the bunker system half apart. And anyway, geez, they liked our VB, man. All these plastered Yanks everywhere apparently next morning still. So that was one of the greatest fears. I think you let your mate down. Wouldn't worry about yourself. And you'd hate to let your mate down.
Okay, so I just want to start off with just getting a brief sort of 4 to 5 minute description of your life to date.
Okay, well I suppose where I start from, I'll go back to where I was born. I was born in Goulburn. My dad's folks all lived around Goulburn, Crookwell area. I'm the eldest of 2 children. I have a sister. And my sister and I grew up very close together. We still are. We were great mates. And if I didn't have a sister to talk to or play with, I would have had no one because we lived out in the bush. We lived on a rural property. I didn't attend primary school. Mum taught me. And when I started high school, I boarded in town for about nearly 2 years. Got my intermediate certificate when I was 15 and 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, whatever it was. And the day I finished my intermediate certificate, I went home and started work. I worked on the place where Dad worked. And I just sort of chuffed along there, living with Mum and Dad, worked on the place till October 1968 when I was enlisted into the army. So I chuffed off down to Singleton, where I did my recruit training there, and I was lucky to get into the Armoured Regiment at Puckapunyal. I was down there for some time, done my training in the regiment, and ended up in A Squadron, then went to Vietnam with A Squadron. Came back towards the end of 1970, discharged, went back onto the farm where I was working, and then I was there about nearly 2 years, and the place was sold, and we had our kids all there, had 5 kids there. And when the place was sold, and I was on disability war pension, and the doctor thought it was a good idea, at that time of the game my health wasn't well, so to take the TPI and give work a miss, so that's what I did. We rented a house in town for a little while before we brought our house out here. That's a very quick overkill. Very quick. No,
that's good. That's excellent.
Yeah. That's why I've sort of become involved with the RSL, not because, well, I don't know, I never aimed to get anything out of it, but I believed that I owed it to my dad and that generation. Yeah, it's always been my belief that help one another. Obviously now those numbers are slowly dwindling, but there's other veterans of Korea, Vietnam veterans, and those who served in peacekeeping forces, and Gulf Wars and whatever I'd like to think that some way I can make a little contribution to them.
So tell me about compulsory military service.
I sort of didn't take much notice to it until, when I got to 20, whatever it was, I had to go and register. Obviously, we hadn't long had TV, because every night on TV was the Vietnam War, was filmed on TV about it. So, yeah, just went in, registered, and went home, basically forgot about it until the bloody letter arrived. That came a bit of a shock. My lifestyle was just sort of chuffing along one day after another. Go to work, come home, go to work, that was basically it. I could see it was going to be a change in my lifestyle. Yeah.
So you're around 19 when you had to
yeah, I think register. It was I think it was 19 or when you registered. I must have been, it might have been 20, I think, I'm not sure. I think it was 20. I'll just work it out. Yeah, it's 20 when you registered. And then, because I remember I had my 21st birthday, actually was in the army, 21st birthday.
Did you want to get out of it?
No, no. No, I didn't. I thought, well, I did. Yeah. I never entered my mind. I never had an inkling. I never had an ambition to join the military forces. I never thought about it really. But like most things, I said, oh well, that's it. I'm in. I'm not going to spend all my energy trying to get out of the ruddy place. I'll spend all my energy making the best of it while I'm in there. There was a few that went to the medical there, and they had all the excuses in the world. And the old doctor was a Second World War doctor, and he just wrote on them that they were medically unfit. So that was pretty easy to get out if you wanted to get out. Because I think he realised it's a waste of bloody time. If you've got them in there, they're going to cause problems, and the heart's not got to be in it. So why inflict other people with them?
What kinds of excuses would they come up with?
Oh, I had bad feet and I had nightmares and also funny sort of ones. Yeah, that was just some of them I'd heard. And when we went to get on the train, they weren't there.
So, how did it work? You'd see coverage of Vietnam on the TV every night?
Pretty well, yeah. It was on TV nearly every night. American bombing missions or attacks or Australians getting killed and wounded. Oh yeah, it was towards the end, in the end of the 60s there, it was full on. Australian troops are still more of them being deployed, because I think the Armoured Regiment there, the tanks that I was with, they didn't get into Vietnam until about 1969. I think the first squadron of them went there, so they were still pouring troops into Vietnam at that stage of the game.
I'm sure your dad would have had a few things to say about them.
I think, he never said anything, he just sort of, but I think him and Mum were, very, very concerned, because I'd hate to have been on the platform on the railway station the day I caught the train to go to Singleton, but even worse would have been the day when I come home before my final leave before I went to Vietnam, I think. Mum and Dad never said, just bloody careful what you're doing, be careful, keep your head down. Yeah, right on, mate. So, we just, I think every family was touched and concerned about it.
Did you have thoughts about the war itself?
No, not such a great one. No. You just see what you see on TV there. You don't they don't emphasise the danger of booby traps, mines, bloody rockets, snipers, all those sorts of things. You just say, the news article come on, Australians involved in a firefight in such a Phuc Tuy province, such and such a place. 2 Australians were killed and 5 wounded, or 10 Australians were wounded when a mine exploded, and those sorts of things. But see, that's sort of basically the detail. I don't know what it was like or what wasn't like.
Did you have opinions about Australian involvement with Vietnam?
Yeah, I still, it seems strange, but I still believe Australian troops should have been involved in Vietnam. And what makes my argument is that when Vietnam finally fell, that there was actually literally the huge amount of people escaped or tried to escape out of Vietnam, boat people and whatever. I think there was more people lost their lives on the sea and the boats and whatever, everybody will reach land between you and me. I don't think they'd ever realised what the loss was. So people were prepared to take that sort of risk to get out of it. The refugees and whatever. I feel an empathy towards them. And those that stopped behind, I think they got brainwashed and life was hard for them. I think Vietnam has turned around now. So my mates have actually gone back there. I've got no ambition to go back. I suppose if the opportunity arises, I might, but yeah. But it's always different. If I had to go anywhere to see a battlefield, I'd sooner go to Gallipoli, or not particularly interested. Coda probably would be, but too much like hard work going and visiting that, I think. But have a look at the major battlefields in France and Belgium. But as far as going back to Vietnam, not over. I think a better places to go.
What about Australia's involvement with this situation, though?
Yeah,
did you guys have opinions about that at the time?
Yeah, we should believe Australia should be there. Yeah. I suppose some will disagree. Some say no, we shouldn't have been there. But some people are now coming out saying we shouldn't have been there, but that's in hindsight. But no, when you were there, we believed we should have been there. Well, that was a very difficult water fight, like guerrilla warfare. We were talking about trench warfare earlier on there, but your bunker systems, they either fight or they ping off before they got in there. But terrorism, not so much terrorism, I suppose guerrilla warfare of mines and booby traps and those sorts of things. Yeah, that's the worst. Worse is not knowing where your enemy is. They'll be cycling down the road in a push bike and waving to you one day, and that night they'll be setting mines up and setting up ambushes for you. So yeah, it's very hard. But I think Australia did in the Fuk-Tui province there, had done a very good job in there.
Must have been a very different kind of war to your dad's.
Oh, completely different.
In terms of how did he view it?
Yeah, well, a lot of Second World War blokes, including my dad, have always said that they would sooner have been where they were than in Vietnam. Yeah, because completely different. No fixed lines, no sign. You never knew where your enemy was. In New Guinea, like the Kokoda track, you knew the enemy just up there. They were there. You could walk through the one piece of jungle that 1 week, and you'd see nothing. Walk back the next week, and you'd get ambushed. So you would get just completely different. I suppose no wars are good, but yeah, Vietnam's a pretty hard war that way.
Were those kinds of things apparent before you left? Those distinctions?
Oh, yeah. We certainly were trained well on it before we went. We were aware of it. Before we went into the army, probably not quite so aware of it. Yeah. No, that's one thing about it. We were well trained. And Australians, well, infantry, like there was lots of tracks, and that was through the jungle. And basically, the Australians were trained never to walk on the tracks. We just made our own tracks through the jungle. A, tracks were always booby trapped and mined, and B, that's where the enemy sets your ambushes up on tracks. Australians used to ambush tracks. The Viet Cong used to walk on tracks and things. And Australians used to always walk through the jungle.
So what about the general feeling at the time? What were Australians feeling about Vietnam?
Probably about that time that the anti-war movement was starting to get quite strong. But the silent majority, I still believe, were supporting us. And they were the ones that weren't out on the street, obviously. And, well, I believe that cost the war. The troops in the war, we'd basically, we'd won the war, but we lost the propaganda, particularly back home. So, the Viet Cong even admit that they'd lost the war. But when they started to see the anti-war sentiment take over, particularly in America, they realised they just had to hang in there.
What were the protesters protesting about?
Oh, basically Australians' involvement in the war. Yeah. Which is sort of a shame, because I think there's certainly people, the people of South Vietnam, there's obviously a lot of them didn't want to be taken over by communists. There was obviously some that did, but when the nation was divided there, I believe that they were pretty bloody clever, the North Vietnamese. They'd sent a lot of their troops in with those who had refugees who decided they didn't want to live underneath communist rule. So they'd infiltrated the place, and maybe a lot of terrorism. Well, lots of terrorism, but a lot of coercion in a lot of villages and things. Yeah. Because Vietnamese people, they're friendly. They didn't want the war either. So it's sort of one stage of history you can look at and say, yeah, we were right to be. Then other stage you can say we're not. But my view was that, yep, we were there. Let's do the job. We certainly believe that people should have the right of choice of political freedom. It's freedom of speech, freedom to do what they like, in reason. Got to by the law of the land, of course. But yeah.
So did you have any opinions about the protesters at that point?
Yeah, I wasn't real keen on them, but one of the things that really annoyed us was that when we was in Vietnam, the wharfies decided they wouldn't put a black band on the Australian supply ships that were supplying us, which was a Navy ship called the Japara, and they black banded it, so that had just affected us. It wasn't going to stop the bloody war, but it certainly put us at risk, because we were having supply difficulties, spare parts, those types of things. So the Navy had to turn around and take over and load the ship themselves. The wharfies wouldn't do it. So that, the Australians in Vietnam were really pissed off at the Union at that stage of the game. So, bloody hell going on. If you don't agree with it, don't agree with it. But if you've got to, we still got to survive up there by you're not helping us. You just actually all you're doing is putting us at risk. You're not going to win the war, but you're going to cost our lives by not keeping our essential supplies and foods and everything else we need. So we weren't happy with them.
How did blokes feel about being conscripted into the army, or doing compulsory military service?
Oh, there was always those who were totally opposed to it. But the greatest majorities obviously accepted it. And as I said, some of those that didn't want it had medical reasons, didn't go anyway. So, but I think the majority of us have looked at it that it was an adventure as usual, which seems to be the answer for most of us. Even going back to the Great War, they all joined because they thought it was a great military adventure. There's not much adventure about it, I don't suppose, but those of us who did it, we gave it 110% because, as I said earlier, if you don't, you're not there to support your mate. It's like any team, it's a full team effort, and everybody's got to be played to 100% ability, no matter what it is. Keep your mind on your bloody job. You might, the bloke could get hurt, but the bloke next to you might be. So that was one of the greatest fears. I think you let your mate down. Wouldn't worry about yourself. And you'd hate to let your mate down.
Do you think? What is your opinion about compulsory military service as a policy?
I think it's probably a good policy, which may seem strange, but I don't really. There is actually two schools of thought. There's like a military national service, and then there's a community national service. Especially a few years ago when there's the high rate of unemployment, you could actually call them up and maybe not do military service, but there's plenty of other types of service they could have done. Instead of calling it bloody work for the dole, you could have taken people in and trained them in specific community skills and those types of things, which benefits everybody. So there is a lot of conjectures over we have compulsory military, but I don't think we'll ever see compulsory military service brought in again. The logistics of it is just, and how do you do it? The number system, if you're going to do it, one in, all in. I think that's a bit like the Israeli army.
Explain that to me. The marble out of the barrel thing.
It was just luck of the draw. They actually spat a marble out of the barrel, and it was actually your birthday date, the day you were born, birthday, your date. Wasn't you as an individual. So if you was born like I was on the 25th of April, 25th of April came out, everybody who was born on the 25th of April were called up. So I reckon I'd have a chance born on Anzac Day. You'd have to be a marble. It'd have to come out, wouldn't it? So, yeah. Then they just went through, and then with the quota of how many, a couple of thousand, how many on whatever, I don't know what the quota figure was, how many they took. Yeah, worked it out. No, we need a couple of more birthday dates. You haven't got enough, I think. They've drawn a couple more out. I don't know how it worked, but I don't think I know that it was actually done on birthday dates.
So would you see someone spin this barrel?
Yeah, I think they actually did do a public draw. So you'd sit there with bated breath, wouldn't you?
Did you watch it on the TV?
No. I don't know if it was a live broadcast, but I think they actually did have a public. I think they did have a public. Don't quote me.
So it wasn't like a Sale of the Century thing with like one of those barrel girls or whatever?
Could have been. Come on down. Your uniform's waiting for you.
Come to the war.
Yes. Free trip overseas.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So tell me about the process. Once you actually registered, what happened then?
You were given the dates that you had to go and have medicals. So I think the first time we met all one another, we turned up at the X-ray place. And a mate of mine was in a rock and roll band. He had hair about twice as long as yours. So this is going to be interesting. But anyway, we all got ourselves X-rayed, and then I think it was a Saturday night actually. We had the local RMO, medical officer. I think there was a couple of them there, and as I said, he was a Second World War veteran. And there was about 30 of us turned up there, and done our medicals, and give us a bit of a quiz, and basically the old doc said to me, he said, "Yeah," he said, "You're right." He says, "You're in." I said, "Yeah, good, thanks, doc." Not about, I think it was about 11 o'clock or something like that before I got home.
You were telling me before the differences between infantry and armoured, just in terms of infantry, you really need a lot of skill to be able to survive. Yeah.
So many things to look out for. You've got to be aware of everything all the time. And one of the biggest things in Vietnam was where you put your feet, because there was, a whole section just blown away with one landmine. Somebody's put their foot in somewhere. And you've got to be aware of, like, one of the classical places was there was a section of blokes got killed. They out in the middle of this area, and there's a nice big tree. So where are you going to stop on a hot day? Boom. So, that's the sort of skills you live or die by. Look for tripwires, just keep your eyes up, tripwires, enemies, all sorts of things. We needed the sort of skills also in the army when we were driving. If we came to places where the tanks had to all go through to get across a gully or a creek, we used to carry sappers with us, engineers, and they had their little mine detector things, like they used for looking for gold nuggets. So they'd get out and wander around and have a poke and look for see if there any mines in there before we drove through. So you had to check all them places out. So it was skills on both sides, but I think we had a little bit more protection. A couple of our tanks did hit those anti-personnel mines. One of them, bad one, was it turned just as it hit it, so it only flicked the back of the tank, track hit it. And the bloody mines used to jump up in the air about 5 or 6 feet and then explode. And it jumped up and exploded and just cleared the back of the, basically came up and cleared onto the back of the tank. And the troop commander, not the troop commander, but the vehicle commander and the loader operator who had themselves exposed out of the turret of the tank, they got both very badly wounded. This bloody mine. But you can imagine, I've seen the tank, and it's all steel, but it's got all these pit marks and where these the shrapnel smacked in the back of the tank. And so you can imagine what it does if it jumped up in the middle amongst a heap of men.
Indeed. I'd like to ask you more questions about that. Because when you were first registering, did you guys kind of know what you wanted to go into?
No, not really, no. I think basically we thought infantry was a great demand because they had 3 battalions there and they're only doing a 12 months period, so there's 3,000 blokes there that you've got to swap around. So infantry was... But then again, there was quite a few of them put in for the service course, like truck drivers and mechanics and those sorts of things. We used to always laugh about if you were a mechanic, you end up a cook. If you was a cook, you end up a mechanic. So that still applied. So
they didn't place you according to your skills necessarily?
Yeah, they did, I think. Yeah, they did, yeah. And I think that's, probably jumping the gun, but that's how I ended up. Skills with driving tractors and dozers and those sorts of things when I was a young fellow. So we basically graduated out of there and went to the what they call the regiment.
Yep.
And went to the A squadron.
Yep. And then went to Nui Dat.
No, a fair bit later on. Yeah.
A bit later on.
We spent a lot of time training. Went to Guerrilla.
Okay. All right. Well, let's not jump too far ahead.
No.
In terms of so we're talking about the tank. We're in the tank. I'd just like you describe the periscope system and the way everything kind of works, just visually, because, yeah.
Okay. Well,
I'm blind.
Right. In a battle situation, in theory, you close the hatches down, and the only way you can see is there's periscopes. There's 2 of them about this big. One sits there and one sits there, so you actually can sort of see, and they swivel, so you can actually have one looking straight ahead and one looking to the side. So if you've got another tank alongside you, turn this one this way so you can keep an eye on him, because otherwise, unless the crew commander tells you where the other vehicle is or what's going on, you haven't got a clue. So when you drop down below, there was probably about 6 to 7 inches of steel, and the hole in the tank was that thick. So you drop down below that, so that'll give you protection.
So they're almost like your rear vision mirrors or something, as well as your eyes.
You couldn't see backwards, but you could see to the side a bit, yeah. So you needed to see what was in front of you, and needed to see if you're going to turn to the left or the right, you could swivel your periscope around a little bit to get a look. So you didn't want to run over somebody or run over, well, if you're in a bunker system, look for where you were going. Yeah. But as I said there, we very rarely used them. One of my mates was badly wounded. He was just sitting there like I was, but an RPG rocket hit the front of the gun mantle above his head, and he got quite badly hurt. Steel flew off the back of off the tank onto his head.
Onto his...
He hit him in the back of the head. So he was quite bad. He was very badly knocked around.
From the tank?
When you get those RPG rockets, they like a gas, they burn their way through. Instantly burn their way through. They might only burn a hole as big as a pencil, but you get a splash off, like steel, moulded steel splashes off. But anyway, so the main thing was that in those sorts of situations, drop your seat down, whack your two covers over, hatches over, then watch out and lock it, and then watch out of the periscope. We used to close the hatches down sometimes. It was pouring rain. It was too wet to sleep outside, to sleep in the tank.
When you're in Vietnam or in training?
Yeah, no, in Vietnam. Yeah.
Oh, okay. In terms of just the view, being able to see, you'd only be able to look out of the tank when the hatches are down?
You should periscope when the hatches are closed, when the seat's down, but when at the normal time you'd have your head sticking out. With the hatches it'd be folded back. They just folded back it this way. Yeah. But you still only had quite a limited view. You could sort of see, you could only sort of see the sides, you couldn't see behind you. Yeah, and I'll tell you another story a bit later on about why people shouldn't overtake tanks when the drivers can't see what they're doing.
Can you tell us now?
When we was in Vietnam, we was driving up one of the main roads there. We was going to set an ambush up late in the afternoon, and an American in a little 1-ton truck thing decided he'd overtake me, but I didn't know he was overtaking us. Then anyway, I just happened to glance across, and here's this vehicle flying through this paddy field, and the bonnet's bouncing up and down, and so as the driver hits over, it bounces over these paddy fields, coming screeching to a halt. And the old crew commander says to me, he says, "You just run a bloke off the road then?" I said, "Oh, I didn't see him." "Oh," he says. I said, "Is he all right?" "Oh, yes," but he says, "I think he's going to need his underclothes changed." So I said, "Oh, you've got to tell me if somebody's overtaken me." We weren't supposed to drive them. In Australia, we couldn't drive our tanks on the roads. But in America, it was a great, in Vietnam, it was a great experience. The Americans had built these real bitumen roads. Because, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but the road between Saigon and Vung Tau was one of the main roads, and the Americans upgraded the road. And the old Centurion used to love going down the bitumen road. You'd actually yank and you could slide down the road going, flat out, top speed 21 miles an hour. And you could actually slide down the bitumen road, still going in the same direction. Tracks are still going, you just go sideways. Oh, it was great fun. It, took a bit of skill to do, but you could just slide on the road. So this bloke overtaking me, I didn't know he was there, so I'll probably just give the stick a bit of a jerk to keep it going, because they don't run in a straight line all the time, they veer a bit all the time, because one track on one side might be a little bit longer than the other side, so it just, the vehicle will crib one way or the other.
So just that mechanism of the turning tracks, it needs to actually grip onto something in order to move you forward. Yeah. So
if you've got it sideways, you just lock it up and just hit one of the brakes or steering levers, and you just put one track out of kilter with the other, and she just slides sideways on the road. Pretty good feeling, just having a 50-odd ton vehicles sliding down the road. Did
you have any of the other guys in the tank at the time?
Oh yeah, we always crewed up, but that didn't worry. Oh yeah, oh, bloody road showing off again. But we just took the road, with oncoming transport, you all see them, they'd head to the edge of the road, we just said, right, we own this road. It probably wasn't a very nice thing to do, but no one's going to argue with that sort of vehicle size, are they?
So what sort of speeds do you get up to?
Only 21 miles an hour. Which doesn't seem fast when you say it, but if you're hurdling along at 20-odd miles, that puts that about 30-odd k's, I suppose, yeah.
In something of that size?
Something in that size, magnitude, yeah. Especially if it's dusty air, imagine the huge cloud of dust and that flying.
So traditionally, the tracks actually grip onto stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And you need to maintain equilibrium on both sides, or could you topple over?
No, it wouldn't fall over.
Fall over?
No, we had it on some really sharp angles, and they'd slide before they'd tip over. If you're on a steep side of the hill, the weight of them is they start to slide down. But you wouldn't, you'd be careful what you're doing. You didn't. But they basically climb nearly vertical, or drop down verticals. Those things we sort of learned at when we got to the regiment. I know we've done it at the centre when we was driving. We had to learn how to ford or cross gullies, and one of the things that took it out into there's some big washaways, deeper Asian gullies, and you actually had to learn how to drive the tank, drop the tank over about a 20-foot vertical drop. Yeah. So that was an interesting skill. You used to have to lock all the hatches down, put the gun at the back, and the gun had a cradle thing, so you tightened the gun down because you couldn't leave it out the front. Then you drove up until the tank got the point of balance, and as it started to go down, you went from, say, first gear, you went into about fourth gear, and you planted your foot, so she went to hit the ground, she just drove itself out. Oh, yeah. That was sort of, it wasn't too bad about the second one, because the first bloke went through, it actually cut the bank down a little bit. But you had to learn how to drive vertically down at vertical falls.
What about the impact of people inside the tank?
No, when we learned to drive it, well, we had the crew commander who was teaching us. He was the only one in the vehicle. Even though he used to bang pretty hard and hit the bottom, there's a bit of give and take in them. Main thing was not to hit the idle wheels too much and break them.
But the seats aren't padded or anything, are
They're about as good as these seats we're sitting on. Yeah. There's a bit of a thump. But the secret was, once you started down, you drove it, see, so the tracks would grip and pull you straight around, otherwise if you went out slow, she'd likely to fall over on its
Did that ever
on the
happen?
tongue. No. Maybe they did when they learned to do it, but no, we never did have those. No. When she went down and, as I said, whacked her into basically top gear and planted the foot, so she just hit them, the tracks were speeded up, they pulled the vehicle out.
So
Amazing where you could take them. Don't believe me, do you?
Yeah, I do. So tell me about when you first started to drive them. What did you feel when you first got in there?
It was an amazing sort of feeling, really, because even though it was a petrol engine, the same sort of engine they had in Spitfire fighter planes. And even though they only did about 2,400 revs, but when you sort of wound them up, they used to sort of scream. And you could hear this motor way down the back screaming away there. But basically, most of the time you drove by field. But when we learned to drive, we drove by the tacho. The tacho was sort of just sitting here, and you'd have to be watching the tacho because the huge amount of noise with the roaring of the tracks and rumbling and everything like that. And 9 times out of 10 you couldn't hear the engine. So you'd be watching the tacho. When she dropped down a certain rev, you'd have to go and change gears, or when she revved up. They had a magneto in them. We used to have a cutout on them. So when the engine rate got to 2,440 revs, they'd cut out, so the motor would over rev, she'd die on you, and she'd start missing. So you just watch the tacho when she hit full tacho rev speed. You change the gear, or you just actually back your foot off a little bit. And when we learned, the old commander used to say, teaching us used to say, he said, "I'll back her off, you're on the cutout." And you could hear it, you see somebody's driving a flat out, she's just standing there, she's all missing, because the magnetos used to cut in and the motor would go putting her and going on, because so you just back her off a little bit to get her off the cut off.
So when you say missing, you mean like jumps a gear, or?
No, the power electric spark, the spark plugs cuts out.
Do you stop?
Well, it will till you get down below the certain revs, then she just fires back up again. But it doesn't stop dead, but it starts missing. Some of the cylinders start to miss because they were cutting out before the other ones. So you just start to lose. Instead of having 12 cylinders, you're probably only down to 8 or 9 or 10. So a couple of them miss out, then you just drops the power. So then she just drops down below the red line.
So when you're sitting in there, what are you using to steer with?
The 2 levers. They just had levers. Yeah, not like a bulldozer where you've got pedals or anything, but levers. No. And you had to sort of basically, when you're driving, you're allowed to lean forward to reach the levers when you're in the head up position. But when you drop down, you sort of levers to back up here because the seat used to fall down. What would it fall down? 18 inches, 2 foot, I suppose. The seat used to rise and lower.
And there's no vision except for if you are looking through the periscopes and if your head's above that hatch.
That's all. Basically, when you're down, you've got to use the periscope when you're sitting down in the vehicle. When you're sitting up, you're just basically eye level, maybe just a little bit higher. All depends on the height of the person. Then you had to lean forward to do it, to pull the gear lever. Gear lever was in the middle, and the brakes were on the side, and the handbrake was on the other side as well. So it had an accelerator, had a clutch, and a brake.
So you'd have to be pretty automatic.
Oh, you're busy.
Do it with
all
your
the-
eyes closed. You'd have to be doing it with your eyes closed almost, in terms of what you're doing with your hands.
Oh yes, you couldn't see what you were doing. Yep. You didn't look down to see where the gear lever was. You knew where you were. You just started automatically. Yeah. And you just had to look over now and again to keep it. But after we got experience with it, we didn't bother worrying about the tacho because who knew what we were doing. Yeah. If you started to dive back, you just had to keep the revs up, so you throw it back another double shot back into another gear. Yeah. Keep the revs going.
How long did it take to get really confident?
I don't think I probably got really confident until I got to the regiment, so I could do it, but I wasn't brilliant. But I think it probably took 3 or 4 months, maybe a bit longer, until I got really good at it.
So just in terms of the tank's vulnerability, is it just literally like a wall of, like a bubble of steel moving along, or is it
a square box of steel, basically? Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, and the Centurion was pretty good that our suspension units were actually bolted onto the hull of the tank. So some of the tanks hitting large mines up there, they busted the track and blew the suspension units off, but then they could re-bolt them back on again, whereas some of the American tanks had torsion, what they call torsion bar suspension, and they actually the mechanism goes right through the whole of the tank. So if you had hit a mine, unfortunately a lot of the high pressure explosive gases could escape through the torsion bar entrance into the hull. So American tanks, those tanks, they had a fair few problems with. But that'd be the end of the tank. Probably the crew wouldn't be real good either. But the old Centurion, provided you didn't hit a mine that exploded in the centre of the tank, blow it off. But there was 2 tank drivers were killed in Vietnam.
of Australians?
Yes, 2 Australian tank drivers were killed in Vietnam. Yeah.
So it actually is vulnerable.
Vulnerable,
You just before we talk about the vulnerability, when you described that earlier scenario of gas in the hull tank, is that because it emits from underneath, or where does the gas?
Out of the explosive, that's what explosive is, huge high pressure gas. Yeah, that's what does damages in bombs.
So what it will explode?
So you hit the mine and huge gas explodes and you've got a huge pressure.
Yep.
It'll blow in through where the torsion bar goes through the whole of the tank. The gas is allowed to get in there. It's a weak, vulnerable part. They were in those tanks anyway. Whereas the Centurion, you hit it there, the gas would blow the explosion would blow the track, plus probably the wheels and the suspension unit, which is bolted onto the hull. So you didn't have a weak spot where the gases or the high pressure would expose into the vehicle.
You said that 2 Australians tank drivers were killed in Vietnam.
Yeah, they were killed with big bomb with mines. I won't sort of go into detail because if the family might listen to what happened to them. Yeah, but they were only 2. We had casualties and whatever.
Okay, so in terms of those 2 guys that were killed in Vietnam in those tanks.
Yeah, well, one of the fellas was killed with an unexploded American 500-pound bomb. I don't actually know the details. But the other fellow was killed because the hull of the tank underneath the driver's compartment has a drainage plug. And of course he probably got out 2 or 3 times to do it, and the ground was wet and boggy and mud, covered in mud. So to make it easier, he screwed it in from inside his compartment. So when the tank hit the mine, instead of the flange on the drain plug being strong and help resist the explosive charge, it was only the thread holding it. So that just blew up into the vehicle, was what killed him. So obviously things are designed for a certain way and to act in certain conditions. So even though it was probably a good idea to do it, but in realistic terms, it wasn't designed to be done that way. And that's just the way things happen, I suppose.
Do they give you good kind of rundown of those kinds of things when you're learning about the tank?
Yeah, but they didn't sort of mention that one, but yeah, the basic things is you put it back the way it's supposed to be done. There's actually not a number, but there are whole access plates under the floor in the bottom of the tank for engine oil change and those sorts of things. You've got to unroof these bolted off access plates. That's probably one of the weakest part of the tank, is actually the bottom of the vehicle.
The actual floor.
Floor, it's not the thickest part.
So anything, when you're talking about mines, anything that comes from underneath, you're striking at the most vulnerable part.
Vulnerable part, yeah. The track part, if it's directly under the track, is certainly devastating. But there's one, if anybody ever goes to Canberra, look at the tank in the Warmer Little Canberra there, just get on your hands and knees and have a look underneath it and see what happened there. The mine was offset. A lot of cases, the switch of the tank, or the mines are with the mine, with explosive charger, but this one was set offset. The switch is sort of 3 or 4 feet away from the explosive, and she went up, and the explosive charge actually went underneath the tank. It didn't bust the hole or anything, but it put a big bulge in the bottom of it, then ruptured the ammunition and all your linkages and things there. So that's, I'm not sure whether the tank caught fire or not, but yeah. So that's the vulnerable part of the tank.
So when you say offset,
the switches for setting off explosive charges, they were very, very simple and very primitive. They basically consist of 2 pieces of bamboo wood with a little metal plate like a bloody jam tin or something in the middle, and a little electric battery with the wires going onto each of the little metal plates or tin plates, hooked to an electric detonator. So when a heavy vehicle, or basically a vehicle, they were set for vehicles, goes over, pushes the 2 pieces of bamboo together, the 2 pieces of metal make contact, causes your circuit in your battery, and sets your electric detonator off. So they were set, say the explosive charge was dug in a hole, set in one area, and the wire and the bamboo switch was probably set 3 or 4 feet away. You could have went the other way, you could have drove actually over it, and the explosive charge would have went off about 4 or 5 feet away from the vehicle. But as Murphy's Law would have it, they drove over it and it went off underneath the vehicle.
this is a World War II tank or Vietnam tank?
Vietnam tank I'm talking about.
So that's
Vietnam.
a VC. That's
Yeah,
a
it's a
VC
VC,
mine.
yeah.
Right. So what would happen theoretically if a mine was to explode underneath the tank?
That's what I'm talking about. That's what happened. It bulged the bottom of the tank, on the floor of the tank. You could, I suppose, in theory, send them back and have to cut the floor out of them and rebuild them. But see all the linkages and the bins, ammo bins, batteries. There's got a large number of batteries set in the bottom of the tank. So it would have busted all them. The chances are that it probably actually would have burnt the tank out.
So what, it would rupture through the floor, or would rupture enough to...
Just bulge. It probably put a bulge in, instead of being level, it's probably raised at 6 to 9 inches. The steel's it's armoured steel, but it was lucky enough that it was designed, I think, so it doesn't fracture. It just will give in it.
So what would it do to the people inside the tank?
It all depends how severe. If they busted the ammo, ensured the battery's out, the chances are that it might have started to fire. But otherwise, if it didn't, if they're lucky enough it didn't, it would have just crippled the tank. Because of your steering linkages and all those things, it probably would have loosened the engine mountings and busted, hard to say what it would have busted. Yep.
If it started to fire, it would be outside the tank or inside the tank?
Inside, yeah.
So it'd be like a veritable oven?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had one of our tanks blow up. Hit a mine, but they had, it was just happening in front of me. I was driving the troop leader's tank, and the sergeant tank was in front of us. We drove in the night or evening before to set up an ambush, and when we went back out to drive back out again, you don't drive in the same tracks in case somebody comes in during the night time and sets it up. So we're driving half a tank width. So there was the tank track, and our track one was in the middle and one was on the side, and drove out, and they'd put 2 RPG rockets in with the explosive. So the rockets, the mine itself didn't hurt the tank, but the 2 rockets burned a hole through the bottom of penetrated into the bottom of the tank. In doing so, ruptured. That's where a lot of the the main armament ammunition is, and they just busted it up and the tank caught fire. And flames were shooting out of me, mates were flying out of the tank, yeah. A couple of them got quite badly burnt. That happened just right in front of us there, yeah.
Did anyone survive?
Yeah, they all survived.
They all survived?
Yeah.
What are the logistics of jumping out of a tank when it's something like that's happening?
But it's better than hanging around in there, isn't it?
But like, do you have to climb?
No, they just flew out, yeah. The sergeant, he actually sort of, he just sort of flew out, and he flew over the side of the vehicle and got hooked up. He had a radio harness on himself. He was hung up there, sort of hung and didn't hit the ground, just flew out the turret. And the gunner, he's down underneath him. He hopped leapt out and he grabbed to help the sergeant. And they pulled him, got him back, and they went back onto the engine deck of the tank. By that, and the operator, he just flew straight out. The driver, he hopped out of the front of the vehicle. The fire wasn't in his compartment. That was getting pretty bloody hot there. The worst thing you've got to be careful is, of course, if you jump out, there might have been anti-personnel mines there as well.
Were there?
No, it wasn't, luckily. But the engineers there did find another tank mine some 20 yards away from where this one was.
So how burnt were they?
Blisters up the arm, back of the neck, yeah. The old sergeant, he got badly, he was burnt, but he never came back on operations. That was, yeah.
I can imagine it must be really, really scary going down.
It was
not
scary
knowing.
for us just even watching it, yeah. Because, what could you do? We couldn't do anything. Because basically what happened was we go on a full alert, because that would have been an opportune time for the Viet Cong to attack us. It was in this large clearing, probably a couple of 100 yards wide, with jungle on each side of us. So she caught fire there.
So, and you couldn't reverse or anything like that either?
No, we had other vehicles behind us. So, yeah,
so you were in sort of convoy?
Yeah, it was in a convoy. You follow one another all the time. Yeah. And I actually, you've only got to be out 6 inches, you can hit a bloody mine or something like that. There's a difference between the luck of the draw and no luck at all.
So you're saying there could have been actually mines
Oh,
either side of the tank and you just missed them?
Yeah, you wouldn't know where you missed them. So you drove in there, missed the tanks is 11 foot wide. So, that's 5.5 feet, missed it by 5.5 feet, and we drove in. Drove over it when he was going out.
So was everyone just paralysed? What happened?
No, we sort of went into a drill at ready reaction. And my troop leader, he jumped out and ran along the track where the other vehicle drove. You don't walk where the track hadn't drove. And he helped him, but we were in action. We were ready to go, sort of thing. We were traversing guns around and making sure that, because that had been an ideal time while we were under a fair bit of stress there. If there had been any Charlie in the scrub there, it would have been the time to have a go at us. So yeah, it was a bit hectic there for a while.
So what happened when you stepped out of the tank?
I never got out of the tank, because the crew did. We got them back, and we just let the tank burn out. Just flames and fire everywhere there. We've actually got fire extinguishers in the vehicle, and there's a set of the fire extinguisher the driver can set off, which actually gets CO2 gas into the engine compartment. But there's nothing we could do with the ammo. It just went up. It was only the propellant. Luckily, the warheads didn't explode. The shells didn't explode. With the fire? Which would have made... Oh, yeah. You wouldn't think a tank would burn, but, yeah, bloody... They go. Then we basically had to let it burn out, and then had to medevac the blokes out. Then we had to go and get another we had to wait there most of the day. They had to bring in another bloody tank recovery vehicle to pull them. Did you put them in your tank while they waited for the medevac? Yeah, they came up onto our tank, yeah. Were they just... They was in shock, yeah. What did they say? Can you remember what they said? No, not really. They were sort of doing a fair bit of talking amongst ourselves there, yeah. What they're exactly saying, but they're just saying, bloody lucky to get out of there. We were. As I said, one of them was, the gunner was, he got burns up the back of his arm. Didn't catch on fire himself personally, luckily. But. You said before that if you hit the track, it's devastating
on a tank. What's the effect of that? What happens theoretically if a mine was to hit the track?
Well, you just come and screech, the track would fly off, and you just screech to a halt. You can't go, can't move anywhere, so you're stuck there. That leaves you open to attack. But the tank can be recovered and rebuilt. They'd fixed them up they had a big workshop in Nui Dat there, where they rebuilt them. Do major changes like engine changes, and they've got a certain lifespan, so when they blow up you can get new engines and things.
So the actual track would come off, like literally
just break. Yeah, it's just held together with they've got pins or steel pins through them. They're steel tracks, but they will smash. Yeah.
So you're just totally vulnerable to attack.
Oh yeah.
You also mentioned before that there's some. I don't know if you're referring to the mines, but they can melt the.
Yeah, that's what the rocket does. That the RPG rocket does. Yeah. They're still using them bloody RPGs. They call them. That's what they are. Rocket grenade personnel RPG. They use them in the Middle East at the moment. They're still using them there on the Yanks or whatever. Coming on an RPG attack. Same things.
Can they only melt?
Oh, they explode, but they also they're like a shape charge. What do they call it? A shape charge. And they're shaped in such a way when they explode that they actually force a jet of super hot air into a steel.
And how much of a radius would it melt?
It's only about as big as a pencil.
But it's enough.
But then it gives a splash off steel on the inside. You know, if you used an oxy to burn through steel, you know how you see the steel fly? The melt of steel flies off with the pressure. And that's what it is, the same principle as that. But some of the tanks up there took 3 or 4 RPG tanks, rockets through them. And probably some of the crew were slightly wounded, but they were lucky.
Indeed. Just describing the inside of the tank. There's just the gunner?
And there's a gunner, and we haven't sort of got around to that, but there's the radio operator and loader. On the back of the hull, inside the hull, there's the main radios, which communicate between vehicles, and also allow us to talk as crew to crew. Everybody's got the radios on, and he's also the loader. There's 2 machine guns in coax with the main armament, and the radio operator loader. His job is to load the main armament and make sure the machine guns are all firing. So when we're in a battle situation, he's likely to be down in the vehicle, loading the guns and making sure everything's working. And then there's the crew commander. He's actually standing or sitting on boat, most of the time standing behind the gunner, and he's in charge of the vehicle, which way the vehicle goes and all those sorts of things, fire command.
So you can actually stand at full height in the tank?
Yep.
So it's just in the hull of the
Hull
tank?
of the tank, yeah. The commander can actually stand up. He's got a seat, but he's basically 9 times out of 10 he stands on his seat. And the radio operator, he sort of stands up and sits on the hatch, and 9 times out of 10 they're sitting on top of the hatches outside the vehicle.
Outside the vehicle?
Or sitting on the hatches, like this here. You've got your legs inside the hatch. Yeah, you can't see otherwise, and you can't stand on the floor and see out because it's too high. And of course, if you're standing on the floor doesn't rotate with the tank. The floor is set, so if the operator's got a loader, if they suddenly start traversing the gun left or right, he's got to make sure he walks around on the floor. So otherwise, you can get a bit squished.
So how many people can fit in the hull at one time?
Basically 3. Yeah, it's only 3. There's a bit of room on the loader side. Probably a couple of people. I've been in there with a couple of people been in there. Yeah. But when it was one of the things we do was, I did just try and learn the other guys' jobs. So I've had to go at firing the gun. I've had to go at loading it. Tuning the radios, the radios are old British radios. You had to they have a tendency to wander off channel, so they're quite complicated how you tune the radios. And when we were on pull up somewhere, somebody has to always be on the radio, particularly the troop commander's vehicle, which I drove. I drove the sergeant's vehicle for a while, and then I went on to the troop commander's vehicle. Somebody has to be on the radio all the time, because not only just the troop talking to one another, the vehicles talking to one another. If you've got infantry, they want to talk to you too. Your resupply, your headquarters wants to talk to you. So it's pretty, radio activity is an essential part of our communication. It's the only way of communication.
Can you describe the position of where the gunner is? Pick it up when you're describing just where the gunner is situated and what he's doing inside.
Right. Well, the gunner sits in the turret behind me, but down lower in front of the vehicle commander. His job is to control the firing of the guns, and also the traverse and the movement of the turret. Centurion tank had a gyro system on it that no matter which way how the vehicle bounced up and down, the gun would stay level. So we'd be going along and the vehicles would go rising up and down and the gun would be level. So it's sort of, when you're sitting on driving, it's a bit unusual to see the gun. You think the gun's bouncing up and down all the time, but it's actually the vehicle bouncing up and down all the time because the gun's stopping level. And the gunner could point it at the target, and I'd steer left or right and the gun would still remain on the target. Although it wasn't 100%, it was about 95% accurate. So one of the things I had to do, especially if we're travelling fairly quickly through a timid area, or even we're going fairly slow, is to make sure the bloody gunner was pointing his gun the right way. If I was going to steer around the left-hand side of a tree, I'd make sure I told the gunner that, traverse left. So, because it's a bit embarrassing when the gun goes one way around the tree and the tank tries to go around the other side of the tree. And that has happened an odd time too.
What would happen then?
Actually, it's got a safety clutch on the gear to traverse the turret. I remember down at Parker there, I was hooning along, there's a nice big gum tree there, and for some reason or other, the gunner decides he'd stick the turret out a little bit out the left-hand side, and I decided I'd go the right-hand side of the tree, and next thing the barrel whacks into the tree, and the turret sort of goes, whoosh, and they're suddenly pointing out the bank, frighten the hell out of them. And the other one that gives them a real start, if you're driving into the scrub somewhere and you tell the gunner to traverse left or right, and for some reason he doesn't, and the gun barrel pokes into a tree, and you can see what's going to happen, so you jam your brakes on and screech to a halt, but if the gun barrel hits the tree, it pushes the gun barrel back, and that automatically ejects the main shell out of the thing. So that gives them a big start, and it goes bang, and out flies the shell out of the back of the gun.
Back into the hole.
Yeah. That wakes them up in there. So, yeah.
So how much, is that because the barrel of the gun protrudes certain distance beyond the edge of the tank?
Yeah, it protrudes way out in front of the tank, yeah. So you've got to be careful. So you're talking to the crews, talking to one another all the time, Travis, I was talking to the gun, Travis left, and that's what he'd do. And, Travis right, so I tell him which side of the tree I'm going, whatever. And we had to talk to one another.
How restricted is the gunner when you said that he can move the gun? In a situation, would you be more likely to just have a fixed position and there's not a lot of flexibility like you would have with a machine gun or other types?
No, you could traverse 360 degrees, but you've got to watch out if you don't get in a situation where the trees don't stop you traversing. But the main aim, of course, is to keep the tank front on, because that's where the thickest part of the armoured is, on the front of the tank, not on the side or the back of the tank. So you should drive it into a bunker system. Make sure you got your nose in front of the tank into the bunker system. Don't try to get side on.
So you wouldn't have additional people inside the tank with guns or anything like that?
No. The tank has got the main armament, which was a 20-pounder gun, and it fired a high explosive shell, which is like an artillery round, but also fired an anti-tank round, which was used for other tanks, but we also used that for bunker systems. We used to fire the high-powered anti-tank round into a bunker system. They didn't explode, but they had such a huge muzzle velocity, the compression would blow the bunker system half apart. And they also had what they call a canister round, which was just like a huge big shotgun shell. And they just fired all this, like ball bearings. so it was deadly. And if you had it in the jungle and you couldn't sort of see something in front of you, fire a canister around to just blow all the leaves and trees and stuff out of the road. We've actually shot down trees with canister rounds. You get about 5 or 6 off and just fire the canister around, trees 4 or 5 foot across and just blow it straight enough. Just
Saplings or
no trees.
full-on trees?
Well, the trees standing up trees. Yeah. Trees in the road, you just can't see around through them. Just give them a canister around and it'll chop them off. Just chop them off, blow them off. You've got to be careful the tree doesn't fall over on top of you. But yeah. No.
What happens if that happens?
Well, take great paces then. No, didn't, luckily. We chopped down a few trees down that way, cut and blew them down. Got into a bunker system, wasn't sure what was happening, where they were. Bloody tree in the road, just went up near the tree, fired a canister around, blew the tree, just blew it in half. Well, I didn't blow it in half, just blew the whole trunk off. Tree fell down, you can see where you're going. The Centurion tank was actually developed towards the end of the Second World War to combat the Panzer tanks, that Tigers and the tanks that the Germans had, top German tanks. They rushed them into Germany, but they just got there too late to test them on them. But the Israelis used them with great success. There's their main fighting vehicle. There's the 6-Day Wars and the Yom Kippur Wars they had in Egypt, Syria and all those there. Before they've upgraded them. They actually upgraded their Centurion tanks, put diesel engines in them, put bigger motors in them. But Australia didn't. We just, we had upgraded them as we had an infrared light system on them, so you could see at night time, night vision.
But the VC wouldn't have had any of these kinds of tanks.
No.
Or the North Vietnamese army.
No. They brought when the war sort of finished, they had tanks come in there, but none while we were there. No, we were there basically as infantry support.
Thanks again, Don. Can you explain to me the start-up drill of coming to the tank and how you'd actually start up to move on a mission?
Right, we have what they call there's actually 2 drills. We have a last drill and first drill. So first drill in the morning, we're supposed to lift the hatches up, check the oil, check the water, check the fan belts, and the same thing when you finish up the night. So you do the same thing, but you do it both times a day, beginning of the day and the end of the day. So any major works at night time, that would generally entail fan belts. In Australia, the fan belts used to cut out nearly every day. They do about 1 day and you have to go and change fan belts. But in Vietnam, we had better quality fan belts, so you might get a week out of them. And because you have to change them when everything's red hot, after the engine's been running all day. So that was a real good job. You've got to become an expert at doing it real quick, otherwise, because it was too hot. And also, night time, we would adjust our brakes every day. You'd have to adjust the brakes, because the less movement you wanted in your levers, if you didn't adjust them up, instead of just pulling your lever back about 6 inches, you've got to pull it back bloody 2 feet. And that wouldn't work real well, and that sort of becomes real hard work. Yeah. So it's important how to do those drills.
What was the second start-up procedure of drill?
No, that was basically the main drills, just to check engine oils and everything like that, start the motor up, make things running okay, walk around the vehicle. If the tracks were slack, you'd have to tighten them up at night time or during the daytime if they're working hard. It made them hard to drive if the tracks were real slack. It wouldn't give you a real good ride. If you kept your tracks fairly tight, and if you got into a really rough situation, and instead of slacking off, you actually accelerated, you drove the tank, and the cogs being on the back and up in the air, it would actually tighten the tank down onto the tracks, and that would sort of eliminate a lot of the bounce up and down, because the tank is driving it, pulling itself down on the tracks as it drives. So yeah, if you could do it that way, you could keep it driving. Instead of getting slack, it would bounce. You get the back of the tank down to pull itself down, you tighten itself up.
Was there a emergency drill if you're under attack?
Oh, yeah, that was sort of, yes, well, there's drills, but you took every situation on its own work. You used, under infantry attack, the vehicles would all come in like a huddle together, coming close together, support one another. It all depends where you were. At night time, we used to harbour down for the night. We put the vehicles end to end, like form a tight hollow square. So you've got protection all the way around, and the crews sleep in the middle, in the area in between the back of the vehicles. Give yourself some protection there.
So occasionally you were out on bivouac type thing where that was the case?
Every night, yeah. Unless we were in an ambush. If we did an ambush situation, we'd have the 2 vehicles or 3 vehicles on the ambush front, and the other one pointing backwards to protect the rear.
So just set up for me an ambush scenario. What would you actually do, and how would you actually lay out the battle position?
Well, it all depends what you're ambushing. We used to ambush, there was rivers there, large rivers, and we used to set up ambushes, or set up observation and ambushes on the rivers. We drive down the bank of the rivers with all scrub and getting in there, and the tanks and things, you just sort of have basically you just have the barrel just about pointing through it, but you could see over the scrub and stuff. So you'd have this, we had 2 vehicles looking on the river, and the other vehicle out the back, plus the engineers or the Armoured Recovery vehicle with us. They'd be on the back. So, and then you'd set up there, and basically when nothing was happening on the river, we just sort of took it pretty easy. But you had a couple of blokes a bloke on each tank during the daytime, same at night time, just to watch, observe all the time.
So sorry, just for the landscape, if the river was here, could you sort of lay out where the tanks would be accordingly?
We generally try to pick on a bend or somewhere where we could see well, get plenty of observation up and down the river, and you'd basically part on the bank was pretty high, it was 30, 40 feet down to the water, so we're just on this high bank and it's all scrub. We come in and probably knock down a little bit of bushes and stuff there just to make a bit of so it's clear between the vehicles, particularly the back of the vehicles, so if you need to react you can get into the vehicles quickly, and set up there and watch. But on jungle trails and those sorts of things, well, you just set up in an area where you got the trail under observation. We had at night time we had starlight scopes, so we had one of them.
What are they?
They're like a telescope, but they use starlight, intensify starlight, so you can see in the dark with them. And so you could see in the dark with the telescope, and there's no noise. You just look through them. Everything was sort of a greeny colour, quite sort of strange to look through. But you could, in a dark night, you could still see quite well with them. But also with the infrared spotlight, we had a big infrared spotlight on our vehicle. It'd shine a white light, a mile or so, and then you put an infrared cover over it, and it still sort of gives you the same distance. But you had to have a transformer thing you had to look through to change infrared light back to a spectrum that you can see. So you had to have your auxiliary motor running to drive the generator to drive the bloody lights. So you had a noise, but you also you just couldn't be sitting there looking at the light. You couldn't see it. So you had to look inside the turret with the crew commander. He had an infrared receiver in one of his periscopes to look through to see the image. Where
were these lights positioned on the tank? On the turret or on the...
Yeah, on the turret. The big spotlight was on the front of the turret, and it was on the mantle, so it was actually coincided with the gun. So if anything went wrong, if you observed anything, you could use the main armament or the machine guns, and the spotlight, if set up right, would be shining the spotlight exactly where the gun was pointed.
Were the lights effective or not?
Yeah, they're very good. Yep. But as I say, the only disadvantage was, of course, once you had to start your oxygen up, you had a noise compound come in. So we never used them in ambushes, but we used to use the starlight scope.
Coming back to the ambushes, how many tanks would go out?
We'd have three tanks in the troop, plus an APC or a tank tank recovery vehicle belonging to the RAMI, and they have a couple of mechanics there. So any breakdowns, they would help us fix the vehicles up.
And what's the infantry support?
Most of the time we were by ourselves. We travelled by ourselves, ambushed by ourselves, but other times we did do infantry support. Some of the times we used to carry the infantry around on the tank to get them somewhere and drop them off. But yeah, we didn't get any fights with the infantry. We went through bunker systems by ourselves. Went into a ready reaction to support infantry in a bunker system, and when we got there, the Charlie had shot through. But the infantry found this big bunker system late one afternoon, and we got called in to help them.
So what would be your job in the respect of the bunker system? Aren't bunkers where you crawl through or walk through?
Some of them were, some bunkers are like tunnels, but these ones are like foxholes, like the Second World War, with a hole dug in the ground and logs and that sort of stuff, and bushes covered over the top of them, so they're protected that way, and camouflaged from airstrikes and whatever. But instead of the infantry going in there and getting shot up, well, we went in there and basically destroyed the bunker system for them with their support.
So you just fired shells in there?
Yeah, fired shells in there to them and drove over them and knocked the trees down and just demolished the place, yeah.
So basically trying to collapse the system?
Collapse the system, yeah. And, render it useless. And as I said earlier, you could chop the trees down with the canister rounds, but you could also push them over. So if they had a nice area that was no one there, you just push the trees over and there'd be nothing left. So, yeah.
Could you go through the fire drill of what you do in firing?
I'd find the gun.
Yep.
You fire drill. When down at the Armoured Centre there, the drivers, we had our what are called DNS, and we learned all about driving and servicing drill. But the gunners and the radio operators, which went through the gunnery course, they learned all their drill there. And basically, the main arms were any machine guns or any of the weaponry, unless in some emergency situation, extreme situation, they took their orders from the crew commander. So the crew commander identified the target, basically told the gunner if it's a fair way away, give him range, or if we want to do what they call a ranging shot, or whether they want to do a ranging gun or machine gun shot. And basically told him to fire, and the gunner just called out, firing now, so we all knew that it was firing. That had all come through the radios, so we knew that it was going on, so there was a particularly set drill. The main armament was fired. The loader then would select the round that he was going to fire. The commander probably would have known if they were firing HE, would have known he was still firing HE, high explosive. So he loaded the gun, and it had a little switch on the turret above his head, on the ceiling of the turret, and he'd have to flick that so the gunner couldn't fire the gun before he was out of the way. So it was like a safety switch. He didn't want to ram the shell in there because if the gunner, in a good crew in a hurry, could just hold his finger on the trigger, and then as soon as the breech block was slammed shut, she would automatically fire. It was a electric driving pin that fired the shell. It was an electric firing mechanism in the shell. So if he bloody well had his finger on the trigger, and if the gunner loader wasn't to wake up, the gun suddenly would go off and recoil back at him. Well, it sort of came past him. There was a cover around the back of the gun, so it wouldn't have hit him, but she flies back fairly smartly and ejects the shell out in one motion. So, so he had to make sure he unlocked the switch, and he'd yell out, "Load it!" And if they say a set of targets, how many rounds, the gunner would just yell out, "Firing now!" and just away he'd go, bang, and the loader whack another one, flip the switch, and load it, and firing now. Away you'd go, yeah.
What's the time lapse between how quickly you could fire?
Oh, not very quick. Good loader, only a matter of seconds. Because while he's singing out, as soon as he's loaded, he's grabbing the next shell. There was a basket on the side of the turret that held 4 shells. He had 4 plus 1 up the spout, so he had 5 shells ready to go. He could just, as soon as he could just grab them and put them in and slam them in and bang the breech block, it'd automatically fire shut. Flick his switch and grab another one as he's yelling out, load it. And, it's only a few, real quick.
Forgive me, just so I understand correctly, the guy who's got the switch, the safety switch, where is he in respect to the tank, if you could show it?
Oh, if you're facing the front of the tank, he's on the left-hand side. Right. He's on the opposite side to the gunner, yes, and the crew commander. So he's basically got half the turret to himself. One side of the turret is looking at the front of the tank. On the right-hand side, down below is the gunner. You traverse the gun, aims and fires the gun. The crew commander sort of directly behind him, but up higher, standing behind him or sit behind him. On the other side of the gun actually divides the turret in half. You can't get around behind the gun because the back of the gun's got a cage that goes out around it. So when the shell is ejected, it flies out and hits the back of the cage and drops down into a basket on the floor. Because the floor of the turret doesn't move, just the gun moves. So you don't want shells rolling around under there. Yeah, but if you've got a bit full up, well, you just have to grab the empty cases and heave them out the top of the turret. Or did have a little hole on the back of the turret where you could put the expended shell out. But I think that's always a bit of a danger because sometimes some of them didn't go right out and then actually jammed the turret. So you just heave them out.
Were there ever any accidents in Vietnam or in training in respect to just firing the gun?
No. Be very careful what you were doing. Yeah. Not that I know of. I never saw any accidents, no. Everybody was aware of their job and what they were doing. By the time you got to the first live firing, they'd gone through a lot of training. They knew what they were doing. Well, they thought they did. No, they did.
Okay, what sort of noise does it make inside the tank when it goes off? Have you all got ear muffs?
No, never had ear muffs on, no. Yeah, it's fairly noisy, but it's more noisy outside. Yeah, there is a fair wonk and a bang and a fair bit of noise as the shell's ejected and it falls in. There's noise all the time, rattling and clacking, and a lot of yelling because you're yelling at the top of your voice, you know, firing now and load it and all those things. It's all yelled at the top of the voice.
So after the initial explosion of the shell firing out, would you hear it actually leave the tube?
Oh, you could hear it going through the air, especially the HE, high explosive ones. They have a sort of a whining, whistling sort of noise. And of course they had all our shells had, what do you call it, phosphorus on the back of them. They were tracer rounds. So you could actually see them like a big red light. Boom, and you could follow them. You could see the shell going all the way with the red light. It's burning phosphorus. So you could see exactly where your shells were going. Not like a lot of artillery, they don't fire tracer rounds. Machine guns have tracer rounds. And on the side of the turret they actually had a 50 cal machine gun. And it had a solenoid charge on it. It used to fire 3 rounds, and they were tracer round. Plus they were what they call flash. They'd explode with a bright flash up the other end, and the sights had 4 dots on them. So you started on the top dot, and you put the dot on the target. This was up to 2,000 yards, if you wasn't sure of the exact distances. And if you did a range, what they call ranging gun, which is a machine gun, 50 cal, you'd fire that and it goes blum blum blum, and he puts it up on the next dot and blum blum blum. And he does that, blum, 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 blum. Then you can say the third lot of shots, which would be the third dot, hit the target. So then all you had to say, the crew commander say, then he'd fire the shell then. Range, you say shell, dot 3 on. And then the gunner just put it down to the third dot was on the target, fire the main armament, and the distance should be spot on. You get a hit first round with the main armament. But over 2,000 yards, we used to fire what I call a ranging shell. So it could be 6,000 yards away on direct sight. You'd say 5,000 yards or something like that, and he had a little scale thing on it. Then you set the bubble, fire, and then you might just say, drop a bit up a bit. What do you do then? Hit the target.
A ranging shell though is just a normal shell.
Yes, but ranging shell means that okay. We've got to find out what the range actually is. Might hit the target first. Might hit the bang on the target first on. Then he'll just say, shell fire. She's on target. He doesn't need to adjust it.
The 50 caliber, is that just solely a ranging instrument rather than a defensive instrument?
Yeah. Although I think I heard of my mates talking about in hot situations there, they've grabbed the buddy, the loader is actually fired it because the solenoid only let 3 rounds go slowly, like chung, boom, boom, and then they just grabbed the bloody trigger and let half a bloody belt go flat out. That was in desperate situations. But it also had a 30 cal machine gun, and it was coaxial with the 50 cal in the main armament.
So where was that positioned?
Yeah, next to the 50 cal, you got the main armament. Then next to the main armament was the 50 cal. The next to that was the 30 cal machine gun. So you could use the 30 shell machine gun to spray around a bit, yeah, with the turret. And the troop command, or the lead, not the troop commander, but the crew commander, he actually had a 30 cal machine gun on his cupola next to him as well. So he had a 30 cal. And we also had our own personal weapons. Some of us, the driver was always lucky, I thought, because I always had a pistol. I could hit anything with the bloody thing, but it was always good to carry around. He looked like bloody John Wayne walking around with this pistol. And that was good, because as soon as we used to go out, you know, used to had a holster and a belt and everything. I used to ride it up, stick it in a bin, forget about it. When you got back to Nui Dowda somewhere, you had to have a sidearm with you all the time. So yeah, go and get your pistol out, walk around a bit. Bloody useless thing. But it was better than carrying a rifle around, though. Yeah.
So what did everyone else have?
A couple had rifles, and then the crew commander had a pistol.
What rifles were they?
Yeah, they just. I think they had armour lights actually. Yeah.
The American.
The American. Yeah.
And then, so destroying the bunkers. Just coming back to that.
Yeah.
You'd come to a bunker. What would be the actual process? Would you check the layout of the ground? What would be the process?
Well, basically moved in to find out what was going on there. Found a bunker, got up fairly close because you couldn't use the sight because the gunner couldn't see. So you point the barrel in the right direction, and in some cases you just fired it, point it in the right direction and fired it, let it go because you're fairly close. But if you wanted to make sure that you're a little bit further away and you couldn't sort of see it, sometimes you'd have to get, for the operator loaded the main gun, you'd have a look down the barrel. So you could sort of see where the barrel's pointing in the right direction, yeah. And that's the other thing you had to do if we're doing what they call hole down. The hole of the tank is below the ridge line or a high ground line, and you just put the turret above the, so all you could see, if anybody was looking at you, all they could see was just, if they could see it, was the turret and the gun. So it was pretty close to the ground. You'd have to get the loader operator to have a look down to see if the shell wasn't going to hit the dirt just in front of the vehicle, which has happened an odd time or two, which is a bit embarrassing.
What happens then?
Well, yeah. Luckily they don't explode. If you're lucky, the HE doesn't explode. It just ricocheted, sort of hits the ground and then flew off somewhere up in the air, lands down the paddock somewhere. It doesn't land in some old cocky's bloody dairy farm down the back. Then was it Parker? It was all right. So then there's somebody to get an earful over, making sure. Oh, but I did check it. You didn't check it.
Given a distance, is there a distance that a tank has to be away from its actual landing mark?
No.
In case of sort of...
No, not really. If you've got an enemy that close, what we use the canister rounds, which is like a huge shotgun shell. You know, it's got about 500 or 600 bits of steel, I think it is. And then just blows everything away. Yeah, we park it down there. We were one of the first ones to go through a gunnery chute down there. We had to do a drive. You had to start off and you had to drive onto a ridge about a mile or so away. And you had different targets on the way. And we were the first to go and went over this hill, and here was this heap of these little bloody wooden soldier cutouts under this tree, about 20 of them there. So the old crew leader, crew commander, canister round and target and on fire, boom! And that was the end of it. There wasn't a bloody target left. We had a lot of it, and supposed to do everybody. So we got into trouble and said, next time don't shoot at the targets. You just got to make it, fire near the targets. But just let the canister round and blew the lot of them away. So what was its actual degree of width when it fired, and how far would it go forward? Oh, like a shotgun. So the further away it went, the more the bigger the spread. So 500 or 600 yards away, she's big beaten zone. They were starting to run out of power by then. So yeah, basically I think the effective, really good range was 100 up to say 300 yards. You need to be a bit distance away to get a spread, because like a beaten zone, like a shotgun, the further it gets, the bigger the pattern gets.
Okay, when you're going out on a mission, obviously you'll know what the mission is, but how many shells can you take, and what variation of shells do you take with you?
Oh, in Vietnam, basically most of our shell range was, probably HE. Had a good sprinkling of canister rounds and a few. I think we carried about 50 odd shells altogether. A lot of them were in the floor, and there's a bin on front of the tank next to me. The operator later could get out when the gunner's pointing at the front. I think that was about, what's in there, probably 20 of them in there or something like that. Yeah, we probably, ratio, probably a bit over, probably half HE, then a quarter armoured piercing, a quarter canister rounds. So even though there's no tanks, that we did use the armoured piercing shells to blow up bunkers and those sorts of things, yeah. And that was discovered by accident. I think it was in the bunker, somebody was in the bunker system, and for some reason I stuck a armoured piercing shell into it and then fired into the bunker, and she blew the bunker to pieces and said, oh, that's the way to go. So yeah, it doesn't explode, but there's just a huge shock wave of them because it's such a colossal muzzle velocity with them.
So a bunker's just a flat piece of ground with, as you say, sort of trench-like things or even tunnels in it, or are they the side of a hill?
Anyway, yeah.
Where was the tank most effective? What type of bunker?
Oh, log and dirt bunkers here. Yep. Just stuck a HE round into, stuck a armoured piercing round into and fired them into them. Just sort of cave them in. Yeah. Most of the systems we were in were just straight out bunkers. They weren't well. We wasn't going to get out and check them out to see whether there were tunnels. But yeah, one of my mates he was a tunnel rat, and he used to go down into those tunnels. But no bloody way would I do that. No.
I'm with you, my friend. Now, just stepping back again, the ambushes. What are you actually hoping, or who are you actually? I mean, obviously the VC, but trying to ambush. Is it troops? Is it transports? What are you trying to?
Well, on the river was boats and transports. There was a really strange one of the good best ambushes they had there was before my time. They said there's trooper tanks on this river, and the Americans were doing a big drive up the river and putting it into attack. And anyway, that night these sampan barges came down the river, and they came down on the hour every hour, and they got down there and the Australians, the tanks just blew them out of the water. And they thought, once they got the first one, they said, oh, that's it, that's for the night. About an hour later, chook down the bloody river comes another one, bonk. Yeah. But only a bit of excitement we had there, we were sitting on the side of the river, then a bloody Yank patrol boat came down. And he decided to have a bit of a blast up the bank where we were. We felt like sending them to the bottom of the water, but we didn't. And anyway, they got into trouble for blasting things up. We got on the radio, we've been under attack from bloody Yanks here. And anyway, they got the message quick smart through to them, and anyway, they got a kick in the back. So they sort of a bit boring, so they decided to have a bit of brass up on the river. Right, well, we were having an ambush for it. They didn't know we were there.
So, given obviously in this case you're aiming for boats, you don't have to fire a ranging shot for that. You can just hit them.
No, we'd hit them. Yeah, basically over say up to 1,000 yards sort of thing. It's flat. We've got a main aiming point, so projectile's flat then. So you'd hit it first shot.
What else besides boats are you aiming for?
Well, as you said there, the main thing was that ambush, Viet Cong wandering around at night time or on tracks or daytime on tracks, yeah. That was the main sort of thing, trying to catch them. But the biggest problem we had, of course, is our noise factor and our smell factor. Because hot mechanical smells, you smell our vehicles, and noise. Even on a night time, if you've been running a vehicle all hot all day, and you know steel is like at night time, it cools down, tricks and clicks and makes all these little peculiar noises as the vehicle's cooling down. So it's very hard to keep 100% silent. Yeah, although Australia should have some success with our tank ambushes.
You did.
But we were pretty. We had a pretty quiet time on our ambushes. But that's sort of one of the reasons. And of course, you can smell. You get it in a nice night time. You smell the hot oil. There's always a peculiar smell. Not that we didn't wash and clean ourselves. We were very good boys that way. But but you can understand mechanical machinery like that. Yeah. It probably, but the noise factor, you know, heard the infantry say, or certain read reports of infantry, you know, they've getting close to into a contact and they call the tanks in. And as soon as the bloody Viet Cong here is coming, they're gone. They're not going to hang around. It did take us on in a couple of planned places, but yeah.
Where did they take you on?
Well, they didn't take our troop on, but there was a major battle at well, it was in Berea, in the Tet Offensive, but I don't think the tanks were there. I'm trying to think of the place.
The tanks?
Yeah, the Australian troops got called into the fire support bases. There was Carroll and Belmore, I think it was Belmont, fire support base. Australians helped. The Viet Cong attacked them there. The tanks were a great asset there, yeah.
Okay.
Berea, no, it wasn't Berea. I'm trying to think of the other place. But anyway, didn't worry us. We never sort of got into really contacts, yeah. Pretty quiet.
The tunnel systems, are there any more stories surrounding, you know, firing and destroying tunnels? I mean, what was your experience over that time?
No, but I couldn't actually say whether there was tunnels in our bunker systems where we went in. Maybe there weren't, but I said we went into a bunker system and blew it up and wrecked it and tore it to pieces. And a few days later, we was talking to some infantry blokes who was in the same area there, and they came in and spent the night with us, and they came in and said, there was an airstrike up there, and whereabouts? And we just said, no, it wasn't an airstrike, it was us. God, we tore it apart just like an airstrike. Yeah.
So, given different sizes of bunker and tunnel systems, how many shells would you fire in per sort of?
Oh, it all depends. Probably the tanks probably fired 3 or 4, 4 or 5 each. All depends. Just blow them up, then manoeuvre around to make sure there's no one in there. There's no enemy there to attack us. So then we just go through and just drive on some of them. So you got your 3 vehicles there, so they fired 3 or 4 shots each. That's 12 or a dozen bunkers you can blow up real quick.
While you're firing your gun, is someone actually checking that the enemy is not coming up on you?
Oh yes. Yeah, we're on the move. We're watching all the time. Yeah.
So what was the process? One would fire, two would.
No, we just move through together, and then maybe one vehicle at the front and the other 2 on the flanking, watching the flanks moving in from the flank, and just watching all the time what was happening there. One of the best blokes who had the best view was actually the driver, because I was down low, whereas the other crew sitting up high actually couldn't see through the foliage some of the time. So yeah, it was the driver had an important role to play there. That down low I could see the opening of the bunkers and things. A lot of the times I was actually directing the tank the gun what to do, to where to go. It was up to the crew commander what he fired into it there. But, I'd say, there's a bunker over to the left there, 40 metres, and those sorts of things, because I could see it.
How are you identifying the bunker? Just by?
Yeah, well, I could talk to the gunner. Bunker 40 metres there, and then if the crew commander couldn't see it where, and I'd say, point the gun. I'd say, Travis, right, on. As soon as he got to where I said, can you see it? Then, oh, yeah. So I could give him direct with the gun, point the gun in the right direction.
So what are you actually looking for in the ground to identify a bunker?
Generally like a split, like a black line, or a shadow or something. You can sort of just see the difference in the foliage, or a difference in like an opening. Yep. And a lot of times they're sort of covered up with leaves and green, sort of camouflage and hidden. But once you know what you're looking for, you could see it.
You were talking about the fact that when the VC heard the tanks coming, they used to take off. Are you therefore saying that they had no tactics to try and take down or bring down a tank?
Oh no, they had tactics there. They used to use a rocket grenade launchers against RPGs against us. But why would you stand around and fire a slingshot at a bloody steel monster? No. When they were attacking fire support bases, the tanks were there. They were fair dinkum and they were trying to get in. But if you're especially in open, well, they just flee. We actually were driving across some open country, and there was about 12 Viet Cong, and they were about 50 yards from the line of scrub, and you just couldn't open fire on them, anybody, unless you were dead certain that they were, and because they were 500 or 600 yards away from us, we could see them. But by the time you go back to see that there was like Arvin, the South Vietnamese forces, they could have been in that area as well. So you don't just open fire unless you've come under fire and you can see they're carrying AK-47 rifles, and obviously were. Well, then you had an open go. But by the time we grabbed the radio, call back. No, there's no friendlies in the area. They'd belted for their bloody lives and got into the scrub. But we should have just hooked into them before we seen them. But one of the great fears there was from anybody up there to put friendly fire on somebody.
Did that ever happen?
Oh, it happened quite a lot. Yeah, I don't think it happened to the Armoured Corps, but Infantry, yeah, it happened. Yeah, happened to them. Because, even though we had jungle greens, everything when you're wet, sweat, rain, green goes dark, light pour, looks black, then that's always a tragedy of war. One of the worst tragedies.
You heard stories about this?
Oh, heard of stories like that, yeah. One company of infantry had set up, a couple of platoons had set up their base, or set up the harbour for the night, and the platoon was supposed to come in from the bloody west, and they got themselves a bit bloody lost and came in from the wrong direction, and one of the blokes got shot because he was coming from the wrong direction. And they were wet and hadn't changed their clothes for a week, and just looked black. So that's a terrible tragedy can happen. It does happen. See, that's a diversion back to the First World War. Sally's great uncle, he was shot at Gallipoli by his own sentry. Challenged him, and he was deaf, lost his hearing, couldn't hear him. So the sentry shot him. So it happens in all wars.
Given the tank's responsibilities in Vietnam, was it an effective tool in jungle warfare or not?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Why?
Probably the only thing that stopped us was actually bamboo clumps, big bamboo clumps, and that it was impregnable. You just couldn't drive through that. But everywhere else we could go, even in the wet season, surprisingly we could go. Admittedly, we did get bogged down again. One of the worst bogs we got into was off a road in front of a village. And one of our vehicles, it just bloody nearly disappeared out of sight, and took us about 2 days before we could get it out. We actually left it there for overnight, and the local Arvin, the local South Vietnam forces, they protected the vehicle there. We had to come back and get a huge lot more cables. I was the second vehicle, I got bogged, but they was able to pull me out. And the other one was too far away, we didn't have enough cables to join it together to pull him out. And, but it's surprising where they could go though. They were, the ground pressure on them, I think it's about 11 pound per square inch, which is a lot less than our chair on the floor here. That's I think they're very effective, and I know that mates talked to who've been in the infantry, they had a great respect for the tanks.
How did you actually get this tank out of the bog? What was the process, and what machine pulled them?
Another tank just pulled him out. Yeah, probably hooked two tanks together, had a short cable between the two tanks, and then run a real long cable out and onto the other vehicle, and we just pulled him out, then take one rope off and just go back, drive forward and pull him back out again, so winched him out. On the what they call a recovery vehicle was actually a Centurion tank without a turret, and the engineers used to carry it, but it had a big winch on the back of it, and it was specially designed for an armoured recovery vehicle. It had a couple of machine guns on it, but that's all it had. And sometimes they came with us. And it had a big winch cable and a spade sort of thing that used to just drop down, so you dig into the ground to stop the vehicle pulling itself back. So it could be used to recover other vehicles and tow vehicles.
What was the most traumatic mission that you went on?
Probably none more than any other, I don't think. It's just 100% all the time. Because you never know when you mines, you never knew when he's going to hit it. You never know when he's going to make contact. It just lived on your nerves all the time.
Was that the worst thing about the war?
Probably was, yeah. You never knew where your enemy were, or what was under the ground, or what was around the corner. As I talked about earlier there, you know, the other wars there, that you knew exactly where your enemy were. You never knew where anybody was. There was always a fear that used to talk about what they call satchel charges. You know, people you're driving up and down the road with motorbikes, trucks, cars, vehicles going by you. All they had to do was have a satchel or a knapsack or something like that full of explosive, and all they had to do was just drive by and leap it in, throw it up, so you know, try and get in the hull of the tank. So they could just drive right by and just throw it on the vehicle, in the vehicle.
Are you saying that happened?
No, but it could have happened. Yeah, we were always very wary of it. Always kept our eyes on things. That's what I mean to say. When we were going down the road, we used to take 99% of the road.
Besides using the armaments that you have, did you ever drive into the enemy and try and run them over or something?
No. I was a good boy. Wouldn't do that much. No.
The tank wasn't used for that purpose?
I think some of the other tanks may have done, but I can't speak for our troop. Our troop wasn't, yeah. But I think in bunker systems like that, if they'd have been in there, well, you know, there'd have been tough luck, Charlie. So, you know, destroying bunker systems, there probably were times where Australian tanks might have been used, and they might have been in there. But then, as far as I'm concerned, no, we didn't.
Was there a major engagement that you were involved in?
Not really, no. We seem to be in the right place at the right time as far as I was concerned. And look, mate, I'm going to come back a bloody live cow, not a bloody dead era. Yeah.
Were some of the boys in your corps cowboys, so to speak?
No. I was only there for one thing, and that was to do our job. Yeah. They, I believe, carried out to a very, very high professional standard. Yep. No, it wasn't gang ho or anything like that. We bloody were there to do a job, and we done to the best of our ability. Wasn't there to show off or bloody yahoo or make idiots of ourselves. No. Because I think one of the things that a lot of units have is pride in your unit. And as the Armoured Corps, we always wear a black beret, and you know, have great pride in our black beret. So I'm going to let the side of the team down.
When you're out on a night ambush, was there a rotation sleep roster?
Oh,
watch
yes.
roster?
Yes.
How did that work?
Bloody hard. I was always tired, you know. Yeah. We used to do 2-hour shifts, then you get 4 hours off, then you're going to do another 2-hour shift. But there used to be 2 of us on. Yeah, 2 together, then you have 4 hours off. So you used to have to swap around that way. But they were, 2 hours is a long time. Then go back and get 4 hours sleep. Then back on it again for another 2 hours. One of the worst sort of places to be in, of course, I reckon, was in bloody rubber plantations, because the whole forest is full of flies. And every time we looked down the pack, now, is that a fly? Is that somebody with a torch? And it was the first few times in bloody rubber plantations, because the whole, it's just like a bloody 1,000 people dancing around the bloody candles, the fireflies, full fireflies.
And when you got the opportunity to just sleep, did you sleep or?
Yep. Yeah, you're just in a state of exhaustion most of the time. You're up before daylight, and you basically don't go to bed after. If you've got the first shift, well, you're there from, say, 10 o'clock, then you get 4 hours off again at 2 o'clock, and then it's 4 o'clock again, so you might go back and have an hour sleep, and you're at it again, sort of thing. So you're only looking at, 4 or 5 hours sleep most nights. But sometimes you feel you're just, well, we were one day that we were waiting for some infantry to catch up with us, so I just dropped the old, I didn't bother getting out of my seat, I just dropped the old seat just to lay back a bit. I lay back, I'm having a lovely snooze there, and then the next thing somebody comes down and yells out and yelling at me, you bloody want to sleep, what are you doing? You're looking for you, I've got to go now, oh, right up. So you can sleep really well.
So where were the positions of watch and where were the positions of sleep on the tank?
When the dry season, we were pretty lucky. We had little bloody camp stretchers. We used just to throw them on the ground behind the vehicle. But on duty at night time was in the turret, on top of the tank. One would be in the crew commander side, which was the gunner side, so when it was wrong, you'd fly down and you'd use the guns from there, or the machine gun, crew commander's machine gun. And the other fellow would sit on the other side, on the loader side. So if you needed to whack into it, well, you just drop down, load guns and those sorts of things. And also the radios, monitor the radios.
So there was no need to actually sleep inside the tank?
No. I slept in the sort of tank a couple of times on what we thought were pretty tricky ambushes and pouring rain, and we hadn't set up, so yeah, but no, we basically didn't sleep in the tank.
And was it hard to stay awake during your watch?
Yeah, terrible. Yeah.
What would you do? What would keep you awake?
Well, the 2 years there, we weren't supposed to talk, but you'd have a little quiet natter away to one another. You get somebody who could talk to you, just whisper away to one another. They're very gentle and quiet. You sort of keep you alert, keep you going. But after a while, there was always the fear that you go to sleep. So that's why we actually had two people there to ensure that no one did. So we used to be, you'd be on the go, on the alert. But yeah, especially the second shift, yeah, very hard.
Was there ever a time, or you heard of a time, where crews did fall asleep?
No. If they did, they never told me. No, I don't think so. No, they're pretty good. As I said, it's it's survival. But the nights up there are, when the moon's on, it's eerie, moonlight. But at night time, when there's no moon, it's just pitch dark. And as I said, bloody flies flying around. And we used to have had some little torches, like those little pencil torches, and they only shined a little small beam. Well, it could have been a whole bloody battalion of Viet Cong marching out the front of one of those torches. You wouldn't have known. But the scarlight scopes, they were interesting. You could look through them at night time, but the fireflies, they shone it really bright. You could sort of nearly see them with the scope. So I used to keep an eye on that. Radios are very quiet. No one chatted on the radios unless they wandered.
Forgive me, if you slept for 4 hours and you're on watch for 2 hours, and there's two guys up, how does that actually work?
Well, so you've got the three vehicles there, so there's 12. So you might only set up one place, or you set up two places if you've got with a couple of blokes from a couple of sappers with you. So they do guard duty as well, plus a couple of blokes from Ramey. So that sort of gives you 16, so you can, yeah. Probably the first guard mightn't start till people start to settle down for the night, so you mightn't actually everybody's on duties basically to well after dark. There's a bit of twilight, not such a great light, but sort of light, then bang, it's dark. So once it was dark, there's nothing else you could do.
If you were going to attack a Centurion tank and try and blow it up, where was its weakness? Where would you attack?
Don't know. It's probably the front idler wheel or somewhere like that. Try and knock the tracks off it. That'd be about, yeah, knock the track off it. Because you've got the right sort of gun, rocket and things, it probably, no matter where you hit them. But if you had a limited thing, what you could do is, yeah, try and knock the track off them. And don't go too far out of track. But they were designed, as I said, to combat the Tigers and the top German tanks at the end of the Second World War. Yeah.
What animals were you afraid of or annoyed you in respect to getting inside the tank? Or
Oh, bloody ants. There's little red ants, and they put leaves together, and they make a nest in there. Oh, mongrel things. They hit a tree, the bloody nest would fall on where it falls, straight in the bloody driver's compartment. And they'd bite the crap out of you. And they would hang on, and you would pull them off, and their bloody heads would stop behind. That's how they'd bite. Oh, mongrel things. And we used to carry a tin of mortine there, and everybody would be smelling like stinking mortine. Oh, hello, you run into an ant's nest, did you? Oh, they were mongrel. I hit one there one day and I just bloody screeched a halt and I just leapt out. I said, I pulled up and I couldn't care, there was 10,000 Viet Cong there. No way I hanging around. Bloody ants. But another experience we had there, we drove in the track and we were going to knock off for lunch or having a break or some bloody thing. And we drove into the scrub, only drove in about 10 or 15 yards off the track, and then we pulled up there. It was just thick as buggery in front of us there. I couldn't see a thing. We just sort of got off the track. And anyway, I just getting out of the tank there, and the bloke said, Jesus, did you see what you run over? I said, no, what? Got out there and walked back, and he was this huge king cobra, bloody snake, laying where I run over him. So luckily he was on the ground. He wasn't in the bloody up off the ground at all, because we dozed to the scrub. Oh, he was a massive bloody snake. He was about 14 or 15 foot long. He had a head on him, big head on him, well, bigger than my bloody hand. And anyway, he had a bulge in him, so of course the boy's got to be inquisitive, so someone gets a machete out and chops him up, and he had a bloody lizard in him, about a 4-foot lizard inside this bloody cobra snake. Yeah. I often think now, if he'd have been up in the trees a bit, if he'd have come in and eaten me, I would have been a goner. That would have been equal to the red ants, I tell you. I'd have been out of there. I'd have let the tank drive itself.
So is that what happened to you? The ant's nest fell down on you? Mm. Could you just talk us through what happened?
Well, you want to hear me suffer, don't you? Oh, they were mongrels of things. They just munch into you. But I don't know whether they had a lockjaw on them enough, but they would just pierce the skin, and they just chomp onto you, and they would not let go.
So tell me what you're doing. Just tell me the story.
Well, we just finished up in an ambush and we're making off, and we're just driving along, and I know I ended up in front of some bloody thing, and there was just a little scrubby tree there, because trees in the road are no objects, so I hit the tree, and as I hit the tree, this bloody ant's nest just flew off the tree and dropped straight on my lap there, and about 5 million little red ants. They weren't little either, they were big. And the funny part of it was, when we was in Australia, we used to train with tank suits, which like overalls, button-up overalls. But I don't know why, in Vietnam we just had jungle greens, just, green trousers, ordinary, same as infantry use. And because, never might have had one button done up on the front, because that bloody hot. You can imagine about 5 million ants down your shirt and all over you. So, yeah, I just knocked her into gear and just flew out. And so luckily somebody heaved me down a can of mortine, and that did repel them a bit. They just soaked half a can of mortine over us. Yeah, I had about 5 minutes there sorting these ruddy ants out.
And what were the rest of the boys doing?
Laughing, of course. No, they were quite sympathetic, because, sometimes if I hit a tree up high, or branches over the top of that, they'd cop it. And what else was the biggest problem? Oh, mozzies, of course. Yeah, they were mozzies. But the other funny sort of thing, there was a bird over there, mate, used to make a bloody squawking noise all night. And was in this, was with the bulldozers doing land clearing. So they pushed up with the bulldozers, had about 5 or 6 bulldozers there, and they just pushed up like a dam, and we just parked inside of it. There's a bank of dirt all the way around us. And we went off one morning there, and they put the carriers in front of us. They had carriers, bulldozers and us, and this bloody APC carrier hit a mine, and actually the fella come from Armidale here and know him quite well. And it blew the mines, just blow those bloody APCs over, so it blew the APC over. He got medevaced out, and anyway, that sort of stuffed up the day by the time we pulled the bloody APC back up and get it pulled out. So anyway, I wasn't sure whether the mine was already there, or did they come in that night and put the mine in there while we was, about half a kilometre away, or a mile or so away from where we were. We hit the mine. So anyway, they that night we used to also carry what they call an M79, which is a oversized shotgun. Used to fire this. It actually referred to as a grenade. It was, and this shell grenade thing probably had a range of about 400 or 500 yards, I think. So we had one of them on the vehicle, and anyway, they said, "Oh well, we've got a buddy, just to keep them buggers honest out there. Let one of the two of them off at night time and just fire them down in the general direction, because they don't make much noise when you fire them. They sort of go woof, boom up the other end there. Anyway, It was my turn on guards, yeah, and this bloody bird up in this tree, quack, quack, squawking, squawking away. I'll give you what, squawking mongrel. It's about time I lit one of those things off. I don't know how far away he was, so I pointed in the general direction. Woof, boom, he was gone. Don't know whether I killed him or not, but it didn't annoy me anymore. You had to do funny things like that to amuse yourself. Yeah, you had some funny times at times.
What other sorts of funny things?
Daddy, well, it was pouring rain one night there, and had our tarpaulin and tent up underneath it in there. And the stupid mate of mine he was the gunner, and our crew commander was the troop commander, was a Louis. And anyway, he's laying on his bunk. There's red hot pouring bloody rain, pitch dark. And anyway, Ruddy Hutchie found a heap of a twig with a few leaves on it. So he goes over and he keeps flapping this wet floggy leaf on on our Louis. And he's, bloody frogs jumping all over me, bloody frogs, I can't sleep. And then he finally woke, after about 5 minutes of this, he finally grabbed hold of it and he woke up with Ruddy Hutchie whacking him with his dead stick. He was going to kill him. Yeah, bloody frogs. He wasn't a frog at all.
And what jokes were played on you?
No, I don't know, mate, just the usual one, I suppose. Not too bad, though, yeah.
What's the usual one?
No, I can't really remember offhand, but no, I wouldn't, it's just sort of funny, good comradeship things, yeah. Yeah, but we'd do stints out in the scrub, and then we'd come back, and we'd have 3 or 4 days back at Nui Dad. And that's when we used to do maintenance on our vehicles, major vehicles. The clutch was getting a bit dicky, replaced the clutch and those sorts of things.
So how long were you out for?
Oh, 3 or 4 weeks at a time.
Oh, really? That long?
Yeah.
So where would you store your food, and what food would you?
We'd have to get
with you?
resupplied every day because the amount of gallons of fuel that were coming through. So
Resupplied with fuel and food.
Yeah. We were actually on American rations. Australian infantry ate Australian rations, but we ate American rations. And American rations came in a box by 2'6" by 18 inches wide, and had these little boxes in it, and each little box was a meal. Whereas Australians had 1 day pack, and they were sort of, foot by, foot by 9 inches, I suppose, and that was a meal, a day's meal. We used to come American rations. And when we first started, this is good, get tinned turkey and omelettes and a little tin of peaches. But after a while, what bloody omelette again? Oh, God. But that kept us alive. But every day we'd have to be resupplied. Sometimes the Chinook's choppers that fly fuel into us, they used to use, had 500-gallon bladders, big rubber bladders, and used to fly them in and drop them off. And we used to carry a petrol pump on the back of our tank. So you'd have to hook it in and fuel ourselves up, pump it up. Sometimes they'd bring in hot box meals to us if we got late in the afternoon, they could organise it. Yeah, so we basically saw resupplies every day. Hardly ever went 2 days. Sometimes we did. If we couldn't, in a place where no one could get to us.
So just coming back to the Yanks food, are you just saying that it was repetitive?
Yeah.
So what variation did you have?
No, it wasn't any variation at all. There was about 4 or 5 different basic. That was the change. So, and you couldn't do anything with them. The Australian rations had 1 day, and they also had what they call a 12-day ration box. And you'd get tins of stew and meat and peas and beans and all that sort of stuff, and you could get a pot and you could throw the whole lot in there, and it makes a terrible looking bloody stew, but it was quite tasty. So you could combine it all, but the American stuff you couldn't get your little can of turkey and your little can of omelette, you couldn't sort of mix it up to make a stew. Yeah, so that was the sort of thing you basically ate what was in there, and that was it. You couldn't vary it at all, but you could vary what you had, but there was only so many varieties. You get what I mean?
So you're saying the Australian packs were actually better?
They were in one way, yeah. But of course we had the room, we'd get 5 or 6 cartons and throw it on the bloody back of the tank. We had a big cage around the back of the turret, and that had fuel and water, not fuel, food and water and that sort of stuff in it there.
Would you at all worry about your rubbish, like pick it up so the enemy wouldn't know where you?
Yep.
So what would you do after you've eaten the meal and you were clearing out to somewhere else?
Oh, we'd put it in bags and actually chuck it on the tank, keep it. Yeah, which is, look, mate, we're bloody wave into these Green Australian mob, I tell you.
But what was the point of cleaning up?
Well, as I was talking earlier about those mines, the switches on the mines, only all they needed was a bloody baked bean tin, and plenty of tin around, but why leave it around? Set it up as a booby trap, get a tin of baked beans, slip a grenade, take the pin out of a grenade, slip a grenade into it, tie a piece of thin wire, tripcord wire across a couple of trees, and all you got to do is somebody just come along, kick it, pulls the bloody grenade out of the tin, no pin in the grenade, 5 seconds or 6 seconds, whatever it is, boom, off goes the grenade. So yeah, you didn't leave anything to chance because everything that you left, somebody else's rubbish, was somebody's bloody, means of killing you or maiming you. So we used to pick everything up, take it with us.
The saying was therefore never more true, obviously, with your rubbish there.
Oh yeah. And batteries were one of the biggest things that if you had a battery, and some of us had little bloody, had radio sort of things, or a camera or something like that. If your battery went flat, never throw your battery away because it only takes a wee little bit of electric charge to set electric dead off. So yeah, it just hung on everything.
Okay. Coming back to being supplied each day, you spoke about the Chinook, I think, coming and bringing petrol. Was it a Chinook that brought your petrol and your food every day, or was it a variety of
vehicles, yeah. If we were well out in the scrub and that the Chinook heavy lift ones had to come in and bring the fuel in for us. If it was near a road, they from the regiment or the Nui Dat, the truck would come out with a couple of bladders of fuel on for us, plus maybe bring us back a hot box meal. We were pretty lucky that we could have a change of clothes every day because we had so much water. We had 15, 20 4-gallon jerry cans on our vehicle, and we used to carry a little bloody canvas shower thing around. When it was permitted, we'd just swing the gun out the side and drop the gun down, hook the shower bucket on, tip some hot water in off the bloody, sitting on the back of the motor of the tank, have a nice hot shower, put clean clothes on. For our grunts, they thought we were God. They'd been out for a week or two and they'd catch up with us. You guys like a shower? Oh, would we what? Have a shower. Boys, men of the cavalry knew what we were doing. Stick the bloody shower out for them. Look, mate, you can only have about 2 gallons of water. 2 gallons of water? That was like 200 gallons of water. Yeah, we used to feel sorry for them. They done it tough.
And what did they call you?
No, I think they just called us tankies, yeah. Turret heads.
That you were saying to me earlier about joining the Armoured Corps.
Oh, yeah. Why wouldn't you want to join the Armoured Corps? Yeah, no, look, yep, that's the way to go, I think, the Armoured Corps. Great life. And why would you rather slug and carry it around when you can drive around and carry it around?
Coming back to being resupplied, aren't you giving your position away the whole time if you're supplied each day? What was the thinking behind that?
Well, when you're using probably 5 or 6 gallons of fuel for for a mile, we're not going to last too long, so we've just got to have our resupply.
So how big was the tank in the tank, if you like, the petrol?
We had a 100-gallon tank that used to be on the back of the tank, which is an auxiliary one, and I think there was another 160 gallons of fuel. So we had about nearly 300 gallons of fuel. But, we were going gallons to the miles, not miles to gallons. So heavy going, first gear, second gear mainly. First gear was super low gear. And you're running all day, basically full revs all day. So, you're just going through the fuel.
Okay.
And we needed, water and those sorts of things to top up, keep things going. They're a big machine to keep running.
Was your crew close? Would you regard them as great friends? And
Yeah. But unfortunately, with the Armoured Corps being such a, I don't like to use the word select, but coming from a small body throughout Australia, sort of my crew that I was with Yeah, one's in the crew commander's in Canberra, and the gunner he's in Young, and the other radio operator, the radio operator and gunners used to swap around a bit. Those two fellas, I don't know. One was in down in Victoria, someone I haven't heard from him for a long time. No, very close.
So when were you put together, in Vietnam or back at training camp?
We sort of trained together. Crews were swapped around a bit. But when I first went to Vietnam, I drove for the sergeant for a little while, and then I then took over and drove for the troop commander.
So when were you? Was that the first time you met the troop commander?
No, I drove for him in Australia. So he went over there and he had his driver moved. The time was up. He came back to Australia for some reason or other. And anyway, so I went back on with him then. Yeah, I don't want to sound overskiting, but the drive for the troop commander is probably the hardest job in the troop, because we're basically a three-man crew. Because the troop commander's he's off getting sit reps and orders, what planning and all those things. So the three of us on that vehicle, whereas the other crew are a four-man crew. Even though the crew commander might be doing certain things, but he'd be helping the other crew. But on the troop leader's vehicle, it was full on. Where I used to do all the servicing, do all the greasing, everything like that on the vehicle. I used to read the rose wheels and take links out of tracks and all those sorts of things. Some of the other crew used to help me, but it was very busy.
That was one extra role you had. Were there other extra roles you had to take on?
Probably doing radio duty with the other, share around with the other crew. Crew commander would be off talking to the other crews or talking to the infantry things, and so there's just basically three on the tank. So, used to take me turn there as well, even though I wasn't officially trained as a radio operator, but I certainly picked it all up and knew me alphabet, me Bravo, Charlie, Deco, Delta, and all those sorts of things. So, had a gift of that. That was pretty simple to pick up.
Did you have a code name, your group or your tank?
Yeah. Tango, as in tank, that was our name, and it was in 3 troop, Tango 3, or Tango 4 was the troop, whatever the troop number was. And then it was Tango 4, which is the troop leader's vehicle. Tango Alpha was the sergeant vehicle, or Tango 4-3. Hang on, I'll get it right. Tango 4 Alpha was the sergeant. Tango 4 Bravo was a corporal, and Tango 4 Charlie. So that they all had code names and code signs, radio code signs. So I knew what they were.
So if you wanted to contact the sergeant's tank, would you dial him up on the radio or
just call him? Everybody's on the radio, so you just call him in now. Tango 4 Alpha, Tango 4 over. So you give the call sign that you want to talk to, and the call sign that you are, and they just come back and say, Tango 4 go. So and away you go. Then we need to go across here and travel left over there and park near that rise there, or whatever you're doing. The message go, Roger. Yeah.
Given the noise, the sound, or even radio equipment problems, was there signs that you used, hand signals you used to give each other?
No, not really. Most were fairly polite. No. No, the radio worked pretty well actually. Yeah. Hand signal sometimes if you want to, your vehicle's alongside you, you want him to, when you're parking at night time, give him a signal. Just you're there sort of thing. So you're just there, and they were watching. You know what they were doing. So but when you sort of do it every night, everybody knows their position. So as troop leader, we were always the second vehicle. One of the corporal vehicles was always the first vehicle. So we drive into, the troop leader say, right, we'll harbour here for the night, and go left 200 metres, wherever it is, and we'll harbour here for the night. So he'd just go into position, he'd go that way, we'd go straight in. The other one would come in, and the other fellow would come around and just spin around back in onto us. So we knew where we were going.
So 2 tanks facing the front, one facing the rear?
Basically more into like a cross. So one came in, the first one just do a left wheel. We come in square with him. The other fellow come in and do a right wheel square with us. The other fellow come in and do a 360, then just back in.
So there was a sergeant's tank, the commander's,
Yeah, who was a lieutenant?
lieutenant's tank, and then
2 corporals.
2 corporals. Was the leading tank a corporal tank for the purpose of it would get taken out first?
Basically. Basically. No, I think, yep, the corporal tank was because he would follow directions. He knew what he was doing. And the sergeant's tank's generally down the back, so you have somebody with authority at the back of anything goes wrong at that end. So you haven't divided your power that much. Yeah.
Okay. Was there ever an engagement that you were in, and just putting obviously mines aside, where a tank got attacked or even men got injured and killed?
No. We didn't have any of that experience, luckily. Yeah. Even saying that, it's you're still sort of under stress all the time because, as I said, you never knew when it was going to happen, what was going to happen. Senior mates get blown up and burnt in the tank that caught fire and whatever. And I hit a small mine, but it didn't bust a tank or tracks or anything, so that was pretty lucky. I think it was probably an anti-personnel mine. It didn't do any damage. So you never knew where it was or what was going to happen. Yeah.
Given that in the case of a tank, there's 4 of you working in a confined situation, how did relationships go? I'm sure you weren't all buddy-buddy the whole time.
No, surprisingly we were. Yep. I don't think we never had a barney or blue of anybody. No, worked really well. And I think that's one of the things that the training does. You end up working as a crew, and if there is any sort of friction, people pick it up, so they swap crews around a little bit. No, we never had a barney at all. One of the things we used to spend a fair bit of time when we had free time was we used to play cards, and that sort of 500 card games were one way I used to relax. You end up in a fire support base and there's infantry around, there's nothing to do, go and play cards.
Did you ever drive or get into a look into the American tanks?
Never had to drive them, but I had a look inside some of them, yeah. We ended up with an American, they call them cavalry unit, came down to where we were. There was a new road getting built, and we were just alongside the road, and they came in. Their equipment was bloody. We just had 3 tanks and our recovery vehicle, and they turned up there with about 40 tanks and 20 trucks and APCs for the school. There's probably 150 vehicles there. That's like their regiment, what they call a regiment or unit, whatever they do, cavalry regiment. Yeah. And their tanks were completely different. They had a little, I think it was called a Sherman tank, but it was only a little. It had a huge gun on it. It had about 152 millimeter gun on it, but it was only a small tank, and I think could have even been amphibious. I'm not sure, but it was, yeah. And they were building this road, and some of these yanks went to go for a drive. And old Louis said, "Oh," he said, "Come on, we're taking for a drive." So they hopped on it. We just burbled down the road about 300 or 400 metres, and turned around and came back, and there's rocks and stuff all over the road. They're big boulders things. And I just hooked it into top gear, and we were just rocking over these rocks and things and lurching around a bit. We weren't hardly moving. And came back and pulled up there, and God damn it, he said, "We couldn't even drive on that road," he said, "let alone go at that speed." So they were amazed at this old Second World War vehicle with their modern stuff. It was kill them. Travel over anything just about the ride of it.
So just coming back to the American tanks, are you saying the Centurion was a better tank than the Sherman?
Yeah, I don't know about their M60. That was one of their main battle tanks, so I didn't see one of them. But these are only little tanks, yeah. And basically, just diversing. One of the interesting things was that struck all the Australians was that we were very close as a troop, as a group, a unit. But the Americans there, we found that they turned up there. Maybe it was the sign of the times what it was then. But there was a lot of Negroes and a lot of whites in the American unit. The Negroes went one way and the whites went one way, and we're not realising that. So the Yanks said, "Oh, come over and have, you guys come and have tea of us tonight. We got some goddamn good food here." Right. So we go over there, we get all this goddamn good food. So we just wander back, and there's a heap of bloody black fellas sitting there, big Negro sitting there. So we just wander over, we sit down and we start talking to them, and all the white blokes, they come in, they got their meals, and they're walking by and giving us a dirty look. It took us a while to wake up that, you know, we weren't supposed to be talking to them guys. I thought we'd be talking to them goddamn guys over there. But, man, they don't call them Negroes or any of those racial names. Call them sir. They're all about 6'6" and weigh about 250 pounds. And fit, jeez, bloody big men. You wouldn't give them bastards cheek, I tell you. We didn't do that. So anyway, the next night they invited us over there. We went, yeah, got it. We all went back and sat down to our own vehicles. We'll sit back over here. We were oh, the Yanks talked to us. They were, yeah, but there was this distinctive group that, yeah, I think they had black crews, white crews. It didn't seem to mix up too much. Maybe they did, but they didn't. But they seemed to be segregated.
What did you think of them as a fighting force?
Oh yeah, I think they're very good. I think myself at times not that we were involved with them at all, but yeah, no, they were yeah, good. And besides, I think they're bloody stupid at times, but it's probably individual units were better than others. I don't really know, but yeah, we respected them for what they were doing. They were same as us. They were putting their goddamn ass on the line like we were.
So there wasn't much talk at Newey Dad about the Americans and.
No, they did actually. After they left us, they actually did go down to Newey Dad, and they stopped a couple of nights there, and they got into the Aussie grog. Well, I reckon it was bloody drunk and stupid Yanks walking around everywhere because alcohol's about half as strong again as there. And what do they call it, Budweiser or whatever. That bloody stuff they drink is terrible grog. I didn't like that beer. And anyway, geez, they liked our VB, man. All these plastered Yanks everywhere apparently next morning still. Yeah.
Did you ever have to call on the Yanks for support?
Oh yeah, air support. Yeah.
So when would you do that?
When we needed them, they'd come in. Yeah.
What would be the situation?
We was at a fire support base, and not long after we got there, we just basically turned up there, and there was Viet Cong was seen about 500 yards in front of us there, and in about 10 minutes, these bloody super sabres these Yanks had, what they come screeching in at treetop level, and bloody napalm and bombs going everywhere there. Roar, shit, this is war here, man. Yeah, they just turn up out of the sky anyway. Yeah. And another towards Centurion there in Vietnam, there was a fair sort of contact went on in the Long High Mountains, and took about 2 days, but they called in a B-52 strike, and we couldn't see it. And then we knew it was coming. They said it'd be 5 o'clock in the morning. And anyway, at 5 o'clock in the morning, it was just like this huge roll of thunder. This B-52 strike went in. It's just awesome, the power of it. Yeah. You know, when these sabres come in there, the 105s, well, these fighters where they were, I've seen, you know, and Phantoms, I've seen them doing bombing runs. You know, they fly in, there'd be a couple of bombs, and boom, boom, and, you know, then they'd roar off with their afterburners going, and they're gone. With this bloody B-52 strike, it went on there for about half a minute. You know, just one roar. Yeah, bloody hard to. You can't sort of explain, but it wasn't a bomb attack. You know, it wasn't boom, boom, boom. It just brrrr, just roared. About half a minute. I think it was about 3 bombers went through there. Yeah, that was sort of the awesome firepower there. And about 2 days later, they were finding bloody Viet Cong wandering around in bloody rice paddies there, you know, 3 or 4 kilometres away. Just had no idea where they were. Yeah, one of the Sioux helicopters came in and landed there, and he was a Viet Cong wandering around. He had no idea where he was. He was bloody deaf, and they literally shit themselves when they hear a bloody jet bomber go over. Yeah, so the firepower's frightening that way.
Talk to me then through the actual events when you called in this sabre. Like, why didn't you just progress forward, and when did you notice the enemy?
There was thick jungle, so instead of putting the grunts in there and putting the tanks in there, it was just as easy to call in an airstrike. They knew where they were, and that was, you know, the bombing mission was pretty well spot on. They had good coordination. They had good directives of where to go. That's one thing about it, they were pretty well spot on. So there was always fighter bombers in the air, always. They take off, they might, a lot of them be on all pre-planned missions, but there would always be some there in such a situation like that. If you've got a sticky situation, well, why put many in there when you've just call up for air support? They're probably just hovering around in the sky somewhere. You know, they're only might be 100 kilometres away, but it's only a few minutes away the speed they were travelling. And they just come screeching straight down, whack, whack, and they'd ball of fire and smoke and flames, and they'd roll it over, and so hit the afterburners, and bang, they're gone.
Okay, so
Instant response pretty well.
So in this particular case, once they'd bombed, did you progress forward?
No. I think the infantry might have went in there a couple of days later, but they didn't go in there then. No, the risk was probably too high, especially in a thick jungle situation like that. If they were there, they weren't there no more. So why worry about it?
So you're therefore saying to me that with the infantry, you guys didn't go around picking a fight as such?
We didn't, yeah. But sort of situations like that, where you're called in the air power, you've either got them or they've shot through, so they're not going to hang around anyway. So I think you wouldn't know. See, they could have even had SAS in there, so you wouldn't know who spotted them, called in the airstrikes.
Tell me the story of when you did run over the mine and what happened there.
We were just chuffing along, and anyway, there was just a bloody explosion. You could feel concussion in the tank. Even if there was an artillery barrage going in, it might be going 3 or 4 kilometres away. You could actually feel the concussion of it sort of go onto you. So you knew. So anyway, just thought this woof concussion, and a bang. Anyway, the old troop commander said, "Oh," he said, "we just hit a mine." And so I screeched to a halt, and he said, "Okay." He said, yep. He said, "Doesn't done any damage here." And then he talks to the vehicle behind us. He said, "Oh no, it just went off as an explosion underneath the track there." Said, "Must have been overlarge, but no, it didn't." All right, away we go. So, but you've got to put a mine report in. So he radios in and said, Tango forward, we were hit a mine, yeah.
Mate, you weren't concerned that there was worse up the road?
Not really, because we got off the road. Well, probably weren't on the road, but yeah, we came in. There was some. It was actually in a situation there was some grunts cropping a bit of a bad time up in this big valley in between these hills. It wasn't on the long highs, on the other hills there. And they wanted us to do a shoot for them, but indirect shoot like artillery. But that's very, very dicey. We probably haven't got enough accuracy, and we're not really. We were trained for our indirect or direct firing, like the indirect firing, which is shooting over a hill at a target. I mean, anyway, our squadron leader basically told us, "No, don't do it because it's too risky. The last thing you need is to drop one short onto the grunts." So we was in there watching them, and we watched them, and they actually come back out. They pulled out and came out, and we were there in case they got into contact getting out. So we waited there for about half a day till they got out of there, and we just wheeled around and we were just driving off when I hit the mine. Yeah.
So just coming back to the grunts and contact, are you saying that they wanted to give you coordinates for you to fire onto?
Yep. But unless you really, that's sort of an artillery job, and we could probably done it, but we couldn't guarantee 100% accuracy or 100%. They were sort of saying it was giving their position, and then they were saying, it's 500 yards in front of us or whatever it was. It's up in this hilly terrain, whether you take the hilly into it or whether it's 500 yards as the shell flies or 500 yards as they'd walk, and there was a risk. They were not under direct attack at that time. And so, we got our troop commander actually called up our squadron, and our squadron leader said, "No, best not to do." He said, "Don't run the risk." He says, "Just stop there, and if they get into trouble getting out, then you might have to. But don't go and do it if you don't have to. If you're not 100% sure And anyway, you know, one of the worst dramas we could ever have is firing or hurting your own troops. So, you know, we just stopped there and they pulled out and got out. It's up a sort of real deep, like a bloody gully gorge sort of thing between these two hills.
Just exploring this a little further in respect to the troops withdrawing back, are you saying that the artillery are actually more accurate than a tank
Oh,
is?
yes, by far.
Why is that? I thought tanks, in a sense, were almost mobile artillery.
Artillery got better ways of setting themselves up, getting exact positions and bearings. Our bearings are probably just compass bearings and degree bearings, but you've got to know exactly where you are. And no, artillery is far superior than us. We're not designed. I don't think tanks are designed to. No, they're not. They're not designed to be an artillery piece. The Americans have got vehicles, mobile guns, which are on track vehicles, but they are actually artillery. So they're far accurate, far superior accuracy than what tanks were as far as indirect shooting. If there was no body friendlies in there, so whack a few shells, and if somebody's up on the hill there, you know, way over to the left there, looking down on it with a pair of binoculars or something, and that might be a different story. But if they want fire brought in, say, 500 yards or 200 yards next to them, we couldn't guarantee that we wouldn't bloody hurt them.
Because part of the problem is you've got to work out accurate your position as well on the
Oh,
map.
yes, that's right. And we've got to know exactly where we are, even looking at maps. You know, you might be out, even on the maps, you could be out 50 metres on an hour. And then we've got to work out angles. The gun's got to be at a certain angle for the range, up and down. The tank would have to be set up properly. We just didn't do it.
So there was never a time that you did actually fire to a point which was called upon?
No. Other troops fired on targets, identified targets, but there was no one near them. Actually, down the long highs there was a cave there, and one of the other fellows told me about they fired onto this cave opening, but unbeknown to them, the bloody thing was just a cave went in one side of the hill and out the other side. It wasn't very deep through. So the shot was really beauty. Went straight in the cave, went straight out the other side, and took off down the back, so heading towards some village. So they said, we better do that anymore. So they were too good at shots. Yeah, but that was by sight shooting with the sight, and not by, as we were trying to say, the indirect shooting. But they were, accurate. When you could see what you're shooting at.
Newey Dat, what was it like living there and returning to base?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, it's always 1970 really wasn't too bad. Early on there, I think the risk of mortar attack and those sorts of things were very high. Wasn't too bad. It's quite comfortable. The main thing was we had just lived in tents which were sandbagged up about 4 foot high, and we had sort of beds with just a mattress, just a old wrought iron bed with a mattress on it, and your gear you didn't want to leave it. But you come back and everything's covered in dust, buddy. Because where we were, there's half the squadron was in a rubber plantation. And of course, guess where we were? Out in the open, next to the road. The road went out the back road, going to what they call the horseshoe. So we were next to the road there and come back, and bloody dust and everything was over there. But it was good to go back and you'd maybe get a couple of days R&R, go down to Vung Tau, and get on the grog down there. Then come back, but most of the time we was in there doing a major vehicle overhauls.
Who would you share your tent with, or would you
crew,
have
same tent crew, except for the Louis. He had a tent. Him and the sergeant had a tent, so it was only the three of us in our tent. But the other crew, there's the corporals, the 4 crews, but the sergeant and the Louis, they had a tent for themselves. But there's only 3 of us in our tent. Yeah, that was all.
Was there much theft in?
No. What are you, thief? Nothing to thief. No. Had it secure. There was some civilians in there, or civilians, Vietnamese in there. They had a lot down the other side. There was a little barber shop set up there. The Vietnamese used to come and cut hair and things. But no, it was nothing to bloody thief anyway. You didn't want to thieve somebody's worn out jocks, did you?
But surely guys bought their own things from Australia, or they
No.
also bought local stuff?
Nah, you buy the stuff just before you come home. You know, you get a day off before you go home. You go down to American PX and you buy the stock up then. When I first got over there, I brought a camera, so I carted a camera around in the vehicle with me. Took over slides in those days, but we couldn't leave it back in the tent anyway because it's just covered in dust and dirt, so it'd be ruined before we got it home. Although some of them they'd saying that there was actually some who stopped at the squadron headquarters and never went out, like those who ran the headquarters radios and all those sorts of things, looked after the queue store and supply. So there was always people there. I think they may have had some of them had tape recorders and those sorts of stuff. But actually, well, none of us in our troop did anyway.
What about stealing army surplus stuff to sell on the black market?
No. Mate, we never had enough bloody surplus for ourselves. Let alone have surplus to flog off the black market. Well, that's, well, dare I say, frontline troops, so I don't know what happened to the rest of them, but no, I don't think there was, no.
And the Australians wouldn't nick anything from the Americans?
Because that's the only time we ever saw the Americans. As I said there, when they came into where we were, and they were there for a couple of days, and they chuffed off. And that's the only time we've ever seen them. But the Americans, I think, were pretty good at giving research supplies and things. You know, yeah, there's no dramas there, I don't think. If you wanted a new engine for your helicopter, they just give you a bloody new helicopter. As true as you hear, but whether that's true or not, I don't know. But you see, they were supplying us with food, fuel and those sorts of essentials. But of course our spare parts, being British, who came from Australia, all came from England. As I said about the wheels being flown straight out. Also on the side of the tank were bins, and they were a bit susceptible to getting wiped off on a tree. If you're going to wipe a bin off, you make sure you didn't wipe your own bin off, you wipe somebody else's bin off. So they used to be brought straight in from England. The APCs, I think they got them in a lot. The Americans looked after them pretty well with supplies. But tanks, we wasn't dependent on the British at all. On the Americans at all, just on the British.
Was Newey Dad ever attacked by mortars while you were there? No,
not while I was there, it wasn't, no. So it was a pretty quiet place to be when I was there.
The blokes get along, given how big's the area?
I don't know, there was basically the 3 battalions there, plus the APCs, there was helicopters and tanks. There was a big workshop there for fixing up APCs, trucks, tanks. Yeah, it was a pretty big area. I think there's probably, at any time, I think that's what the best they ever got to Australia was about, and any one time was something about 8,000 men there. So that might, that's right, but I think that's the highest when everybody was there. Then it built up to that level, and then tapered back off that level.
My understanding is that actually during 1970 the sergeants were riding everyone pretty hard. Is that your experience?
No. Not in our unit, no. No, it was sort of we had an advantage being in the troop commander's vehicle, because now and again he'd have a bit of a blitz on people not cleaning their boots. So we used to still shave every day and didn't clean our boots sometimes. So you see the old trooper, he'll be out and he's got the boot polish out and he's polishing his boots, and she's on, guys. Yeah, right, you see everybody out polishing their boot, and quick, you'd be wondering, boot inspection. Oh yeah, good. Oh, that's good, fella. I see you're all looking after your boots. Only because, we'd watch him, he's cleaning his boots, boys, it's on. So, quick, get the polish out. Bash a bit of polish on it and give the other guys that be seeing you, give them yeah, watch out, she's on.
So if you didn't care for your boots, what was the punishment?
You just get a bit of a rap over the knuckle, just come on, put some boot polish on there, that was all. But 9 times out of 10 we didn't have bloody time to worry about our boots, but when you had 10 minutes, yeah, if you seen him clean his boots, you went and cleaned your boots.
And if your boots were ruined, was it easy to get
Oh,
another?
yes. Yeah. Clothes were a bit of a funny situation. We went over, we took your clothes over, and right, they got to write your name on it. So you write your name on it. And it goes in, when they get dirty, they actually had a laundry, used to wash them for us, which just seemed strange. Just to send it off down to Berea to get washed. So that, but you know, all the time I was there, I never saw my bloody clothes again. You'd end up with somebody, you know, all these old daggy looking clothes. There'd be a bag full of them turn up when we got fuel. We never had my name on it, so you'd rattle around, you found something that fitted. Oh, that'll do. Yeah, one bloke one day I went back to Nui out there, and I thought, "This why this bloke walking around with my nice new bloody trousers?" I said, "My bloody trousers, what are you wearing them for?" He says, "Oh," he said, "they're not yours." No, they are, but yeah, they're going through the mob and the Q store, going through and picking out the good clothes, and so it didn't matter much at first. We just
So there was a bit of pinching of stuff.
no, a bit of resource sharing, shall I say?
You paint a picture that the Australians were almost like the perfect soldier, were they?
Pretty close to it. Yeah, good as any. Yeah. No, I think we're professionals. Yes.
Is that with your RSL hat on, or is that with the
No,
reality
no,
hat?
no. That's with my black beret on. Yeah.
Surely there must have been men who just couldn't cope with the pressure, or...
They probably were. Yep. Yeah, they. I think the infantry had it bloody tough, and I think they might have had their problems. But the people I talked to, I've never heard anybody say that. Yeah, they weren't. We were bad people, bad soldiers, or you know, they were mongrels. But no, I can't. I've never heard. Obviously, there was. I think there was one incident there. I think the sergeant got blown up with somebody threw a hand grenade into him. So whether what was the cause of that, I've never really known. Yeah, maybe I don't want to know, but yeah. No, so I don't know what that was. Whether that fellow who did it went troppo, or whether the sergeant was a mongrel, I don't know. Certainly, there's no need for that. That's disappointing.
When you went on R&R, I mean, what was the Australian behaviour like outside the base?
Oh, pretty good. Yeah, I must admit I was a very good little boy. I didn't misbehave myself, but some of the fellows used to go off and have a good time. Maybe, I don't think they wrecked any bars, but they used to have a good time.
What's a good time mean?
Getting on the grog, getting lottoed and jumping on the Vietnamese, they used to have like horse carts sort of thing, little horse carts with a little horse running around. And then, you know, you pull up there and two Australians get on, and about 8 get on the back, and then the poor old horse, he got his feet off the ground because he's overloaded. And the old Viet Cong, not Viet Cong, but the old Vietnamese, he's yelling at him, trying to get him off. And then they just rearrange so the horse just touches the ground and they gallop off up the road. Yeah. Well, boys will be boys.
What about the Australians enjoying female company?
I think a bit of that went on there too, but a lot of them didn't, and I certainly didn't. Not that I'm painting myself as a goody-goody, but when I used to go down for R&R, there was about 3 or 4 of us there. We never even went out of the brigade because we just get into the grog and there was a movie on every night and good food and go down to the beach and have a swim. Yeah, we were quite happy with that. Some of them used us to be off downtown real quick and visiting the bars and all the rest of it too. Then they come back and you go and see them visiting the doctor about 3 weeks' time, about a week's time, dose of penicillin or something. So, yeah, no, you wouldn't want to touch it.
And no one on your crew or even the large group of tanks got caught and punished for ill discipline amongst the brothels and stuff?
No. Not that I know of, no.
What warnings were the doctors or officers giving you as men in regards to those places?
Oh, basically, VD's just right there with them. Yeah, keep out of them. I certainly had their advice. I never went near it. I was an innocent little bloody boy from the bush.
Did the Australians have any songs that they sung in respect to the enemy or the women?
No, not really. Well, you just yahoo and carry on, you know. We used to, a couple of songs, Riders of the Storm, whatever it is, you know. We'd all come and sing on that out, Riders of the Storm, and carry on. And Eric Bird and the Animals, Sky Pilot.
What about jokes? Were there jokes that circled?
No, probably were now and again, but I sort of can't recall them. Yeah. But so when we came back to Nui Dat, there you'd get a good meal, have a shower, change your clothes. You'd work on the vehicle, but you'd be like work hours. You know, you'd pray at about 8 o'clock in the morning. You used to do guard duty, but you'd only be doing it for 1 hour. It's a couple of blokes for 1 hour because a whole lot of us were there. And then you'd have parade in the morning. The old squad commander would line us up there and just tell us what's going on. They'd give us a debrief. There was contacts made in the Long High Hills last night, and 2 Australians were wounded here, or something else has happened, and Viet Cong was seen there, so they'd give you a stat report on what was actually happened yesterday. And anyway, right up, and where you go, fall out. So you go back around, if your vehicle was around at the bloody workshop, you'd go around and help the Ramey fellas fix your vehicle up, clean the vehicle out, and adjust your tracks, things you sort of hadn't caught up on, clean the gun barrel, clean the guns, and just catch up on maintenance then. And basically when you had your job done, and up by 3 or 4 o'clock, that's it. The pub would be, wasn't supposed to be open, we'd just sneak over and get in the door, and the pub would be open, or the mess we used to call it there. And you'd have a few beers, have tea, then there'd be a movie on. The latest movies we used to show. So watch the movies, and so you basically had 2 or 3 days off then. And then fueled up, stocked up, and chuff off again.
We're just going to pick it up when you actually returned home. What happened when you finished up in Vietnam?
We finished up, and about a week before we finished up, they actually put us on what they call happy pills. While we were there, we take a tablet for malaria, and to clean the system up, you have what they call happy pill. Whether it cleans out the drug you were on, or whether it helps clean up any residual malaria viruses in your system. But anyway, once you get on the happy pills, you know you're on your way home. So that was a relief to get on the happy pills. And we just, the day we left, we got up real early in the morning, went up, there was an airport at Nui Dat, and we got onto an American air transport plane at about 7 o'clock in the morning. And we flew up to Ton Son Nhut, which is the big Air Force base at Saigon, and we just sat around and waited there till the Qantas Boeing come in, and the poor victims for the next cam round, they hopped off, and they loaded us up and fueled us up, and we took off, and we flew straight home to Sydney. I think we left Saigon there about lunchtime, and we didn't get back to Sydney. I think we were the last aeroplane to get into Sydney when we landed. And while we were away, we went out of the old terminal, which used to be like the old Qantas building, which is now, Qantas is now. So when we came back, we landed in the new terminal. But we were the last plane in. There was a few people there waiting for their family to come back, but most of us there, my mates, have no one waiting for us. So yeah, we got in, got through customs, and it was quite interesting that we didn't know what to do with ourselves. Anyway, somebody said, there's an RSL club at Mascot. So we chuffed over to Mascot, and there's a few old diggers there, and what time it was, fairly late. I don't know why it wasn't closed, but it wasn't closed, so they let us in. And then the old diggers there, we had dressed up our uniform and our ribbons on. You were your blokes? I just got back from Vietnam. Oh, right. So the old boys, they said we went to buy a drink. No way. You're not buying a drink in here. We're buying you guys a drink. So some people have said, the RSL had nothing to do with them, and wouldn't anyone know. But that was our first night in Australia, and here's our Mascot RSL club members there. Oh, we had quite a few rounds of grog there till they finally kicked us out. We never brought a drink. So yeah, that stuck in my mind. I won't forget that. And then the next morning we just caught a plane and back to Armidale. Got a taxi, and there was no one there to meet me, so Mum and Dad wasn't sure what time I'd be home. So I drove home and just got on the boundary of the place where my Dad and I was working there before I went away. And his dad driving up the road there in an old Land Rover, they used to have for work there. So he was thrilled to see me, and then chuffed off, and Mum was even thrilled to see me. So had a few days at home, then went back to Holsworthy and was there for a week or so, and just finished up my time doing nothing there, just filling in time. Kicked out, and basically that's it. Go home, get on with your life, forget about it. Which was strange in a way, because no one wanted to know us. Yeah.
The general public, you mean?
Yeah. So, and because all the anti-war rallies and things are all full swing then, so yeah. Get home, get on with your life, forget about it, which is probably, as I think about now, is the wrong attitude to have taken by the military anyway. There was no program or no means to help anybody. I don't think anybody, you done your bit, basically get home, forget about it. And I probably tried to do it. I did that too, I think so. Just got on with my life.
When you came back, you were in civvies?
No, I came back in the plain uniform. Yeah, because I had no civvies. Yeah.
So the old diggers, you were in there with your uniform on?
Yeah. Yeah, they picked it up. Yeah.
And what were their impressions of you guys coming?
Well, they obviously must have been very supportive of us because if they didn't want to know us, they would have just ignored us. But no. As soon as we walked in the place, then they knew we just came back from Vietnam. Yep. Have a beer, and they shouted for us. There was 4 of us, so it was very nice, very good of them.
How many of them?
Oh, probably about half a dozen of them sitting leaning on the bar there.
Was that an unusual reception for
Calling a
Vietnam?
lot of my mates it was. Yeah, it wasn't for us. We just thought we'd come back as heroes. We hadn't though. We weren't heroes. We just came back, just pleased to get out. Time was up, done our 2 years. There was a little bit of pressure I put on me whether I want to, sign on, do another 3 years or 6 years. I said, oh no, we've done what I went to do. So yeah. And there was no talk about upgrading the tanks or anything, which probably would have been interesting if I wanted to consider stopping in. If I'd known they was going to replace the Centurions. For some of my mates who were regular soldiers, they actually ended up, quite a few years later, going to Germany to do all the drills and learn all about the new lever tank they brought. So they had quite an interesting career. But I don't know, I've done my bit.
When did you start to get an impression that people weren't supportive of Vietnam vets?
Oh, yeah, probably even when you got back to town there, it was still fairly cool weather because I came back with a good suntan. A couple of people said, oh, you've got a good suntan, you've been right down the beach. I said, oh no, I've been in Vietnam. And they turned and just walked off, didn't want to talk to us. So, yeah, it was sort of strange. People some people I went to school with. Yeah.
This is even here in Armidale. So it really infiltrated everywhere, this attitude.
It had, yeah. But that was very minor cases, but the first Anzac Day that it must have been 70, when did I get here? 1970, 71 Anzac Day, I think there's a photo of us there. There's 7 or 8 of us turned up on Anzac Day and we ended up on the front page of the Express sort of thing, so yeah. And that time, it was starting to cut back, 72 Australian troops were pulled out, yeah. But I've never missed an Anzac Day, I've always gone to Anzac Day. So. But the whole way of thinking now has completely changed, I think. I've heard people say that they were marching the moratorium and that even they've admitted out, well, it wasn't a very smart thing to do. And I'm making a typical RSL comment and view for myself is that before the last Gulf War, there was a large number of demonstrations against Australia becoming involved. But thank God we'd learned our lesson, because when the Australian troops came home, they were treated as heroes. The demonstration was against the government, but in our case it was against us. So we copped the blame. And people had really, I think, thank God, had realised that what had actually happened in the Iraq War was that was the decision of the government, not the decision of the troops. They went there. For goodness sake, let's support them while they're there. Don't make them feel like we've done to the Vietnam veterans. So there's a turnaround in policy or in view of the average Australian. Because I think the Vietnam War it's a political war. We only do what the government says. the government was voted in by the majority, so that's what the majority says. But don't bloody blame us. Blame the government if you want to, but we copped the blame, not the government. Well, the government got the blame too, but it spilled over onto the veterans as well.
Tell me about your involvement with the RSL.
That was very interesting how that sort of came about. That shortly after I came back, the old fellow used to run a stock and stations agent in Armoured, and Dad was a member of the RSL, so he just yelled out one day as we were walking by, "Come in here and join the RSL." So, and just went in and basically just paid me money over, became a member of the RSL. And I lived at a little place in an area called Woolamumby. It's a little, tiny little village. And Dad's mate, a guy called Ron Diamond, as I spoke about a bit earlier on, he was great mates with Dad. And he rings up one day, he says, "I want Don to go to the RSL meeting." He says, because Woolamumby used to put an Anzac Day service on. So he said, "We need him to go to the RSL. He's got to help run on Anzac Day service at Woolamumby." He said, "We need some support out here." And we hadn't long moved out to Woolamumby. So I'm probably playing with that chord there. So anyway, he picked me up and took me to the RSL meeting. It was the annual general meeting. I didn't know that. First meeting I've ever been to in my life. And the mongrel nominated me as a vice president, didn't he? So, yeah, all in favour, that was it. But anyway, the title was vice president, but it's also like they called it the country vice president. So, right, your job's to run Anzac Day, help organise Anzac Day at Woolamumby. So, did that anyway. Next year I became the senior vice president, and the bloke who was president resigned, and he said, "I brought along this fella, Brown was his name." He said, "Look, he'll make a great president, sir." Well, Mr. Brown was duly elected, and that was February. In March, Mr. Brown turns up at the meeting and says, "Well," he says, "right, thanks for it." He said, "Look, I won't be here for Anzac Day, and someone will have to do it." And they all looked at me and said, "Oh, you're senior, you'll have to do it." I said, "What? Anzac Day?" So, never seen Mr. Brown since. He never turned up, so, yeah. So I basically became involved in the RSL.
Did you have any reservations about joining or anything?
No, never. No.
Knowing that maybe some vets World War II vets had a different attitude, things like that?
No, never struck at Armidale. As I said earlier on, there's World War I veterans there, Second World War veterans. And no, gosh, I was treated like not like a son or a younger veteran, I was just treated like one of them. And that was, yeah. Well, I've heard other veterans say, "Oh, buddy, RSL, no, they kicked us out, wouldn't have us." But Ron Diamond, that's one of the reasons he dragged me along. So he says, "The old First World War blokes were like that." He said, "They wouldn't let us Second World War blokes take over the RSL." So Ron says, "Not happening here." I said, "You get in there." He said, "We'll join." So, yeah, that's how I sort of became involved. But I've struck at, when President went to what they call district council meetings in the New England area. You know, gosh, treated just like one of them. Yeah. Not like a lost son, but like a lost member. Yeah, made most welcome.
Do lots of Vietnam vets join the RSL?
Yeah, quite a lot, yeah. There's quite a few haven't. Like, not every Second World War bloke joined the RSL. But yeah, there's quite a lot, and they're starting to take positions in sub-branches, and which they have to do, because our poor old World War II veterans are in their 80s now.
Getting a bit thin on the ground.
Still plenty of them about, but yeah. But they're starting to slow down a bit, and they need somebody else to take over and carry on the work of the League.
Just one more question I wanted to ask you. Just with the Anzac Day stuff, what is that one of your main duties of organising Anzac Day? Was
when I was sub-branch of the RSL here in Armidale, but as I've taken on as state president, certainly not. It's a huge picture now. Yeah.
So before we move on to the big picture, what would you used to do when you organised Anzac Day?
Oh, basically, the secretary used to write the letters, and they used to sort of coordinate and put it all together with the help of the secretary. It just wasn't me; it's a teamwork. The secretary and everybody's pulled together. Our main object was to ensure that we have a successful and well-run and well-turned-out Anzac Day. Somebody seemed to be the figurehead, and I suppose it was me, but but I was just one of the crew. Without everybody else pulling together, it's one-man shows don't work. And just sort of emceeing it, and an overall picture when it was run to see that everything went according to plan. But all of the work had been done before Anzac Day. And Anzac Day in the last 8, 10, 15 years, probably go back 15 years, were fairly mediocre. But every year now it's a stupid thing to say, but the media always brings up and say, "How'd Anzac Day?" "Oh yeah, bigger than that." Yes, it is. It's actually gone bigger, and young people are turning up in great numbers. And I think that's because, as I said, the history's being taught better. They realise that. I think there's 6 World War I veterans left. We've only got one in New South Wales. That complete link, living link with history is very fragile, especially World War I veterans just about gone. And every day somewhere there's a Second World War veteran go by. So. Living history that's why you're here, isn't it?
Indeed. How do you think young people view war these days?
I think they understand it better, and I think they realise that if you want to, you've got to be prepared to defend your liberty, and if need be, defend somebody else's liberty. I think everybody, no matter where they live, should be able to live in freedom and the right to live their life in a civilised manner. And we certainly don't need dictators and terrorism and all those terrible things that go with it. And I think that young people see the sacrifices made were for those reasons, not to glorify war, not because war was any great adventure, but to try and see that other people have the right to enjoy a civilised and democratic, and not that one political system is better than the other between dictators, or dictators of total leadership like that, when one man or one person rules, it certainly doesn't seem to have the advantages for the common masses. And if you're not prepared to stand up for what you believe in, well, you're soon bloody taken over, corrupted, or overrun by something else you may not believe in.
I think we're almost done with this tape. I just wanted to ask you one last question. Is there anything that you wanted to say to future generations about war and about anything in general as a final statement?
Final statement, okay. Final statement. Well, the younger generations, if you're looking at this, that for my sake, but for all of those who gave their lives since the past, just pause now and again to remember the sacrifice they made, and don't ever forget what they did, because as I often say, that there's a debt that we owe to them, and I believe the only way we can actually pay that debt is remembering what they've done. And when my great-grandchildren look at this, that be proud in what your father and what your grandfather did, but live your life to your fullest and be prepared to stand up and fight for the rights of yourself and others. God bless.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate that a lot.
It's okay.